Grady Newsource, Election Night 2022. I'm Justin Nemitz. Tonight, we bring you exclusive live coverage from across Northeast Georgia, plus expert insights as the votes come in. We have reporters live in Atlanta bringing you the latest from key campaigns throughout the state, the governor's contest, the race for the U.S. Senate, plus we have teams bringing you live updates from 6 Northeast Georgia counties: Athens, Clark, Barrow, Jackson, Oconee, Madison, and Oglethorpe. Now, it'll take time to tabulate the votes, but as we wait to get you those results, reporter Matthew Welsh is live with our panel of 3 political experts to tell us what this election and the results mean for you. Back in the studio, reporter Maddie McCaffrey brings you local insights on the key issues this midterm season, while reporter Ashley Balsavius has live updates from our digital center to help you keep up with the candidates and the issues on social media. Stay with us now live as our team keeps you up to date on all the elections of this critical midterm election. Most of us probably don't know what it took to make this or any other election possible and reliable. After the turmoil from the 2020 election, there's lots of interest and action. Grady Newsource reporter Jenna Monin shows you how everyone from local election officials to even the FBI play a role.
Political campaigns may be the most visible part of an election cycle, but behind the scenes, a team of election officials in Athens, Clark County have spent months preparing for Election Day. Charlotte Sosby, the Director of Elections and Voter Registration, is involved in every step of the preparation process.
Customer service and perfection has always been something that grounded me.
For Elections Assistant Lisa McGlon, Election Day is the culmination of many months of hard work.
Now I think of it as running 20 in our county, running 24 pop-up stores on Election Day.
McGlon tests and prepares the voting equipment and also helps hire and train poll workers.
Does it mean they have to fill out a new form?
Elections clerk Renee Russo leads some of the poll worker trainings.
Step through here.
According to Russo, the elections office has emergency procedures in the event of a threat to a poll worker.
Calm voters down if somebody's coming in and they're trying to stir the pot, have some problem that they want to, air.
The Department of Justice launched the Election Threats Task Force last year to address the increase in threats to election workers since 2020. At the FBI's field office in Atlanta, Georgia, I spoke with Supervisory Special Agent Keith Cabral.
If someone's working at a polling place and someone threatens them in some way, the FBI takes that very seriously. So one of our top priorities is election integrity and being able to provide that confidence to the American people.
An increase in threats isn't the only thing election officials have had to adjust to. In 2021, the Georgia legislature passed Senate Bill 202, or the Election Integrity Act, which changed many procedural aspects of the election process.
Sometimes it felt to me like the regulations in SB 202 were a reaction to election denial claims.
For Sosby, helping her team adapt to SB 202 meant facing the changes head on.
It's been a challenge, but I think we've met those challenges.
This fall, the Elections Office worked with the community to help educate voters on these new changes by attending events such as Ready, Set, Vote, hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens. Preparing for the midterm elections is not an easy task. Nevertheless, in Athens, Clark County, the Elections Office has continued to work for their community members and protect the integrity of the election system.
When I run an election, I'm not thinking about the different candidates on the ballot. I'm thinking about, did I help to run the election in the best way possible so that my neighbors and my friends and my community members can go and vote and trust that their vote was handled correctly.
Jenna Monin, Grady Newsource.
Remember when the elections official from Georgia hit the national spotlight for calling out elected officials? Not sure? Let's refresh your memory. Let's show that clip.
This is elections. This is the backbone of democracy, and all of you who have not said a damn word are complicit in this.
Ooh, harsh. That was Gabriel Sterling, the chief operating officer for Georgia's Secretary of State's office. He was speaking out at the state capitol after elections officials received death threats following the 2020 presidential election. Now, a year later, Grady Newsource reporter Cecilia Lovell spoke with Sterling one-on-one. She found out it's been a busy year of change. all aimed at building and maintaining confidence and trust in elections.
But it's the county workers who are the ones who are really the heroes to this whole process.
Gabriel Sterling, the head of operations at the Georgia Secretary of State's office, has personal experience when it comes to election heroes. And when he spoke out to support them against aggressive threats, his words were heard across the nation.
It has to stop.
Sterling explains that it's local election officials who keep the hands part of elections moving forward.
I get to be on TV, the secretary gets to be on TV, but it's really your local county elections officials and their employees and the poll workers who are doing the heavy lifting.
According to a September 2021 Gallup poll, 66% of people had confidence in their local government, and that includes people who responded a great deal and a fair amount. That's higher than the 57% of people who said they had confidence in their state governments.
And they are your neighbors, they are professionals, they're there to do their job, and we're doing everything we can to support them to make sure that every Georgia voter has a great Georgia voting experience.
Gallup spokesman Justin McCarthy says that we cannot assume that respondents were referring to elections, but a 2007 study from the academic journal PS Political Science and Politics lists voter education, communication, and the education of poll workers as methods to boost voter confidence. Political science Dr. Lana Atkinson is one of the study's researchers.
Voter education helps voters know what's happening. It makes them more confident in the system itself and what they're doing. We see that first-time voters are, for example, less confident in the system than voters who've been doing it a long time. So both habit and experience and education all work together to help people know what they're supposed to do and make it a smooth process for them.
And that's why voters can find voter education information on the Georgia Secretary of State's website.
We revamped our entire website. We have a lot of how-to guides and big, deep explanations as to how the system works and how you as a voter can interact with it. We also have taken part of our Help America Vote Act, our HAVA dollars, and are spending a few $100,000 on digital advertising to really explain how do you use absentee ballots, what does early voting do, what do you have to do in these things, especially in the areas where we've made changes with the Election Integrity Act. So we've really focused on that.
Another voter education tool Sterling emphasizes, logic and accuracy testing.
Every county has to advertise when they do logic and accuracy testing, which is when they literally test each and every machine that's going to be used. It has to be publicized.
Though efforts to conduct elections and educate Georgia voters are implemented throughout the state, Sterling says there are limitations.
We are a small state office. Our budget, the entire budget for our office is about $5.5 million. Fulton County alone in the 2020 election spent $43 million to run their election. And we only have so many resources to do this.
In some election offices, depending on the county, Sterling explains that a lack of resources can also be felt at the local level.
But some of our offices are incredibly under-resourced, very difficult for them to have that. Larger offices have like social media people who do this. But literally counties in this state where they have one part-time employee who gets paid for 24 hours a week so they don't have to pay them benefits. That is the elections employee. So it's difficult for us to demand they all do this. We encourage them to do what they can with the bandwidth and dollars that they get from their counties.
Celia Lovell, Grady Newsource.
The work of state and local election officials matters to most voters. With her finger on the pulse of election integrity, we're joined by in-studio reporter Maddie McCaffrey.
Yes, Justin, according to a survey by the Pew Research Center, 70% of voters say election integrity is very important. I spoke with some local voters who agree that this issue is top of mind as they head to the polls.
Election denial is a huge part of the reason I'm very engaged this election season.
The number one issue is supporting democracy and defending democracy. And with what we've seen going on in the past 5 or 6 years, 7 years, we have a really serious problem on our hands.
That's just what a couple of voters say about election integrity. Now back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Maddie. Now, before we take you to the governor headquarters live, we have some results in the governor election. We'll put those up in a second here. We're just waiting on those results. So with 3% of the precincts reporting right now, For the governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp has 46% and Stacey Abrams, the Democrat, at 54%. Now, these are 3% of the precincts reporting, and this is very early in the process, but of these counties reporting, these are 99% of the early voting results. So there are still a lot of votes to count. So stay tuned. The eyes of that nation are back on Georgia this year, this time mainly because of the key Senate race that could change the political direction of the United States Senate. The other for the governor's office. Grady Newsource reporters Sydney Hood and Connor Hendricks are both live in Atlanta. Sydney from Democrat gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams' watch party, and Connor from incumbent Republican Brian Kemp's event. And this isn't the first time the two candidates have vied for the title of governor. Voters put Brian Kemp in the seat in 2018. So let's check in first with Connor Hendricks with the Kemp campaign. Connor, what's the mood over there? I think Connor is muted. There he is.
We currently have 465,000 votes already cast because of early voting historical records. The governor and his team are joined by rising country music star Logan Crosby. Crosby's a recent Georgia graduate and a Milledgeville native. We'll continue to keep you updated on air and online throughout the evening. For now, live in Atlanta, I'm Connor Hendricks, Grady Newsource.
Connor, thank you very much for that update. Now, this is Democrat Stacey Abrams' second run at the top job in the state of Georgia. We're looking to go back here. Here I am. So, yeah, this is Democrat Stacey Abrams' second run at the top job at the state of Georgia. Now, we're going live to reporter Sydney Hood, who is at gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams' live headquarters. Sydney, what do you have?
Is this race. The folks here behind me, they are finding themselves in a similar situation for the second time. They are waiting to find out if Stacey Abrams will become Georgia's next governor. Now, things are just starting to kick off here. We've already heard some exciting chants and cheers and clapping as precincts are reporting numbers and results are popping up on the screen behind me as they wait to see if Stacey Abrams will make history tonight. And if she does make history, it will not only be here in Georgia, but across the nation, as if she does win, she will become Georgia's, or not only Georgia's, the country's first female black governor. Now, these folks aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and neither am I. I will be here all throughout the night providing you updates and information as those precincts start reporting those numbers and those numbers start rolling in. For now, reporting in Atlanta, Sydney Hood, Grady Newsource.
Sydney, thanks for that update. We'll be going back to you throughout the night. And this is a contest that's poured millions of dollars in campaign ads into Georgia and is one that could change the face of the United States Senate. Former University of Georgia football great Republican Herschel Walker is the candidate trying to unseat Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock. First up, Grady Newsource reporters Spencer Pimkin is live at Walker's home base in Atlanta tonight. Earlier, he heard word from a certain special supporter. Spencer, what does it look like out there?
Hey, Justin, it's looking good. As you can hear behind me, we've got a lot of music and a lot of supporters. The Attorney General came up and revved up the crowd before. But Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker has been stuffing across the state of Georgia with prominent Republicans throughout this cycle. Now, most recently, he had RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel and U.S. Senators Ted Cruz and Rick Scott. So everybody's coming to Georgia, but it's all about the ground game and the money. So according to Georgia Republican Party Press Secretary Danielle Repass, the Georgia GOP and the Georgia VOP Victory Program have already knocked about 4 million doors. That brings up to about 5 million total voter contacts. Now, we just heard from Chairman David Schaefer. He said that is the most in the history of the state Republican Party. And this is on top of the 37 million Walker has raised since announcing his run for U.S. Senate. And it may seem like a lot, but that's little in comparison to the $123 million that Reverend Raphael Warnock has raised since his cycle. So got a lot going on right here, but the Dems have also been bringing some heavy hitters too. Let's see what they've been doing.
Spencer, thank you for joining us. Now let's head over to the Warnock campaign, where Jake Druckman is live to give you an update. Jake? Looks like he needs to be on. We're getting a bunch of technical difficulties here. Sorry, guys. We'll go back to Jake when he is all set and go. But for now, let's go to some more results that come in tonight. But we are joined by our political expert panel with moderator Matthew Welsh is live on the Peyton Anderson Forum with all the analysis you need. Matthew, what's going on up there?
I'm joined here with Professor Joseph Watson, Dr. Charles Bullock, and Dr. Audrey Haynes. Thank you guys all for being here. We're seeing some early results come in here, already over 1 million votes cast. Abrams with an early lead, Warnock with an early lead. What do we make of these early results, and do we think they'll translate to later in the night?
Well, we know that the early voters come in from Fulton County, which is a very Democratic county. And indeed, 2 years ago, both Joe Biden and then later on, 2 months later, Raphael Warnock ran up margins of 220,000 votes there. So, that's where Democrats have to do very well if they're going to win in this state. We don't see all the votes there, but right now it looks promising for the Democrats in that county.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue that it also means that a lot of people are engaged. One of the things that we've been talking about is a lot of the negative partisanship and the polarization that we have. People feel that their side, or let me just rephrase that. People feel like the other side may take whatever issue they're concerned about and ruin it. So if it's inflation and they're Republicans, it's all Biden's fault. If it's democracy and democratic institutions, Democrats may rank that a little bit more higher, turn out to vote because they're motivated, because they're really worried about what the opposition party is going to do. And the race has been so nationalized, I think that is one of the reasons we're seeing turnout at historic levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to build on that, we've seen robust turnout both in the early vote and it appears on Election Day here in Georgia, but we've also seen it nationally. And what we've seen is that when we look at the midterm votes, and keep in mind, midterm elections don't generally generate the same level of votes that presidential elections do, but we're on pace to exceed the number of votes cast in 2018. And so we see a steady increase in voter turnout, which is encouraging.
Certainly some interesting early results here. Justin, we'll throw it back to you in the studio, and we'll keep an eye on what keeps rolling in.
Matthew, thank you for that update. When we come back, we'll take you live to the Board of Elections in Athens and the surrounding counties, plus Ashley Balsavius.
Thanks, Justin. My name is Ashley Balsavius. I'll be your digital anchor for the night, coming to you live from Studio 100. I'll be giving you updates on social media as well as updates on our Grady Newsource Results Center, which we'll talk more about after the break.
We scored going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. But I need that back. No. Kevin!
Welcome to the election show. We have Ashley Balsavius, who joins us in the digital center right now with a member of the digital team. Ashley?
Hey, thanks, Justin. I'm joined here by one of our associate producers, Elise Kim, who's going to be updating our Grady Newsource Results Center throughout the night. We can take a look at it here, but we'll have you updated on our numbers for both the statewide races, such as governor and senate, as well as for all our 6 counties here in Northeast Georgia. So, Elise, what can we expect throughout the night? How often are you going to be updating this?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So I'll be updating this website approximately every 15 minutes throughout the night. You can continue to check the Grady Newsource website Results Center to get those results and those number updates.
Great. And is there any information people should know that would help contextualize these results?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're also going to be updating the percent of precincts reporting throughout the night. So just to kind of contextualize that number for you guys, that is going to include all these precincts throughout the state of Georgia. And even if that number is 100% of precincts reporting, that doesn't necessarily mean that every single ballot within that precinct has been counted.
Thank you. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
Thank you, Ashley, and make sure to keep yourself updated on that website. But right now we have teams live in 5 local counties, making sure you know the results first. First, just down the street, we're live in Athens-Clarke County. Grady Newsource reporter Michaela Young is at the ACC Board of Elections. Michaela, how is it going down there?
Thanks, Justin. So far, so good. As far as we know, all precincts are now closed. We're still waiting to see the results from precincts as they're coming in. Just to report on the reflection of this midterm election, early voting was very up and down. Week 1, there were about 600 to 700 ballots that were submitted each day. But week 2, there was a huge decrease in the ballot submissions. Mayor Gritz and County Commissioner Tim Denson held a press conference about this on October 25th. And in the press conference, the Board of Elections actually voted to extend voting hours. This actually some could say actually helped because for the remainder of week 3, 2,000 votes were approximately counted each day. So waiting just to get the results, hopefully that made a difference. And tonight I will be here live to report the rest of Athens-Clarke County's results as the precincts are coming in.
Thanks, Michaela. We'll be back to check in later on our coverage. Tonight we have local teams live across Northeast Georgia, but we've been following these races for months. That's why Grady Newsource reporter Mary Lou Masters is bringing you the latest election trends in Barrow County. Maddie, what do you have?
Hey, Justin. So Barrow County historically is predominantly Republican and hasn't elected a Democrat to the county commission since the 80s. Now, one of the locally contested elections here in Barrow is the District 4 County Commission seat. I was able to speak with the incumbent Republican as well as the Democratic candidate running against him. Take a listen.
This is Mackenzie Harms with Grady Newsource with information regarding Barrow County elections and what races to keep an eye out for as the polls begin closing across the county. Barrow was created with portions of Gwinnett, Jackson, and Walton counties, and there are 8 polling locations across Barrow County. However, only one of them hosts early voting, and that is where I'm standing right now. Early voting ended on November 4th, and states across the country saw record voter turnout, including Barrow County. Barrow remains a Republican stronghold with 82% voting for Republicans and only 18% voting for Democrats. With that being said, recent polling numbers are favoring Republicans, so it may be difficult for Democrats on the ballot to win. In 2020, Barrow voted 71% for former President Donald Trump and 28% for President Joe Biden. As the final votes pile in for Barrow County, here is a sample ballot that I will talk about with the 3 contested seats when it comes to Barrow County. So first up, we have Mike Collins, who is running for United States House of Representatives for District 10 against the Democrat Tabitha Johnson Green. Mike Collins is a Trump-endorsed candidate who won in a landslide in the primary against Vernon Jones, winning 75% of the votes. Tabitha Johnson Green ran in 2018 and 2020 against Jody Heiss. However, she has lost each time. Next on the ballot is State Rep for District 120, incumbent Houston Gaines, who is running against Mocha Jasmine Johnson. Gaines is a Republican who has served since 2019 for the Georgia House of Representatives and served on numerous committees. Mocha ran against Gaines in 2020. However, she only lost by a total of 3,923 votes. And lastly, the seat for Board of Education in District 1 is the only ballot with an independent running. The independent's name is Kenny Lumpkin, who is running against the Republican Kirsten Bradford. While Lumpkin has a well-known presence in the community, it will be interesting to see if an independent can win in a heavy-leaning Republican county. As you look up and down the ballot, you're going to see that there are 9 representatives from state house to county commissioner who are running as Republicans unopposed. After speaking with local community leaders, no one really seems to be looking for big upsets. However, make sure you're looking for the Board of Education, District 10, and District 120. For Grady Newsource, this is Mackenzie Harms. Back to you in the studio.
Hey, Justin, we'll be back later on throughout the night to keep you updated here in Barrow. Back to you, Justin.
Mary Lou, thank you for that update. Now this year, Georgia's voice couldn't have been louder. Digital reporter Ashley Balsavius is here with us live with more on the record-shattering early voting numbers.
That's right. More than 2.5 million Georgians cast their vote before Election Day this year. Now that also includes numbers of both early voting and absentee ballots. We can take a look at this map here and see our breakdown of early voting totals in Northeast Georgia. First, we have Oconee County leading with 53.1% of eligible voters early voting. Next, followed by that, we have Oglethorpe County with 41.6% of eligible voters casting their ballots before Election Day. Now, this is important because Oglethorpe County consistently ranks in one of the highest, they consistently rank in the top 15 counties in the state of high early voting turnout. Followed by Oglethorpe, we have Jackson County with a turnout of 38.3%, Madison County with a turnout of 32.7%, Athens-Clarke County, 37.6%, and lastly, we have Barrow County with 30.7%. Now, next up, we will talk about early voting numbers and compare from previous election years, but for now, back to you, Justin.
Ashley, thank you for that update. And because we didn't get to talk to Jake at the Warnock debate, we're going to look at some updates at the Georgia Senate race between Democrat Raphael Warnock and the Republican Herschel Walker. With 9% of the precincts reporting for the United States Senate, Herschel Walker is looking at 42% right now, and Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock at 55%. Looking not as tight right now, but we only have 9% of the precincts reporting. But Hulu ads, bus tours, and rallies. We dive into the crazy money spent on this year's midterms, so stay with us.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far. I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna. Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
People do some pretty cool things in their...
Welcome back to Election Night 2022. Now this year is shaping up to be the most expensive midterm election ever. According to nonpartisan research group Open Secrets, the cost of this year's election are set to surpass $16.7 billion. Nationally, the Georgia Senate race has raised the most out of any other senatorial race in the country, bringing in $142 million. According to the Federal Elections Committee, Senator Raphael Warnock has raised over $100 million, with his opponent Herschel Walker only raising $37 million. 90% of Walker's contributions have been from out-of-state donors, compared to 64% of Walker's. In the governor's race, Kemp and Abrams are in the same ballpark in terms of fundraising. Governor Kemp's campaign and its support racked up $80 million in contributions. Meanwhile, Democrat candidate Stacey Abrams' campaign received over $100 million in contributions. Both campaigns are largely supported by political action committees. I spoke with political expert Bill Crane on what's making these campaigns so costly.
Part of the reason the spending is going so fast, so high on the Senate race is between this race, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and really 4 close competitive Senate races, the majority of the U.S. Senate will be.
It's no secret that these elections are not cheap. Now back to you, Justin.
A very special and expensive election indeed, Maddie. Later, we'll check in with more of our local reporters, but first, let's get some more insight from our political expert panel. Matthew, what you got?
Yeah, Justin, we're seeing just over 1.5 million votes rolling in now. And just like we saw there, the campaign funds for this election are obviously skyrocketing. I just have to ask, what makes this midterm election in particular so powerful in Georgia?
Well, I think that we now see Georgia, nationally, Georgia is perceived as a state that is in play, and that means that you're able to draw substantial donations from out of state. And so a lot of the funds that have been raised in Georgia have come from outside of the state of Georgia because Democrats now see they have opportunities for victories. They have a Senate seat to defend. They have a governor's race they are trying to pick up, and so they're willing to invest that money there. But the 2018 gubernatorial race and then the 2020 surprising outcome on those Senate seats and the presidential outcome really put Georgia in play in a way that it has not been historically for a very long time.
Dr. Bullock, the question to you as well. What do you think makes these elections so nationally relevant?
Well, because we have not one, but 2 very close contests, and because we also require a majority vote. So to the extent that any state may go into overtime, we're the state where that could happen. And so, come tomorrow, what we have received, we see, for example, that there are 50 Republicans who have been chosen for the Senate and 49 Democrats. We're going to have the same experience over the next 4 weeks that we had back in 2020 and into early 2021. We will literally be the center of the political world.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Haynes, it's interesting in this one as well. 3 of the 4 candidates in 2 of Georgia's biggest elections are African American. What do you think that speaks to for not only the current political candidate system, but just moving forward? What does that mean for the future of candidates in this state?
Well, I mean, Georgia is a state with a significant population of people of color, particularly Black Americans, and they turn out to vote. And one of the things that I think matters is that when you have the ability to turn out to vote, you can have an impact on elections. I know that one other aspect of that may be is that because of their increased voting, because that's one of the things that we've seen happen as well, is that turnout among Black Americans has increased in this state, especially compared to other minority groups like Hispanics and Asians in the state. Big differences there. That they also may be in play for Republicans, that they are viewed as a body of individuals that can be wooed, perhaps persuaded, and that makes for competitive elections. So we'll see. We know that's the case. Stacey Abrams said it herself, that she's not discounting any votes in this election. Everybody is up for grabs.
That's absolutely right.
And it's worth adding, if I could just add that, it's not just localized to Georgia. We're also seeing in Maryland, the first Black governor in Maryland, they call that race for the first Black governor of Maryland. We're seeing an increasing number of Black candidates, and in particular on the Democratic side, because the Black vote is part of the bedrock of the Democratic vote. It's very difficult for Democrats to win elections without substantial turnout from Black voters.
Certainly an interesting storyline. We'll keep an eye on it as results keep coming in. Justin, we'll throw it back to you in the studio and keep it rolling up here in the path.
Thanks, Matthew. That was some great insight. Now out to Oconee County. Reporter Gabrielle Vitale is there at the elections office, where there are a couple of Board of Election seats up for grabs. Gabrielle, what's going on out there?
Yeah, so the main race that we're focusing on here in Oconee County is the Board of Education. Earlier, I spoke with a parent on what she's looking for when she heads to the polls.
I think it's important that they have that they're in touch with the community in general. So not just the things that are happening within the school system, but in the community as a whole, and how some of those issues intertwine into what's happening into the schools and things like that as well.
When it comes to voting, many parents like Jennifer Lancaster are voting for a candidate who has children in the school system. Post 2 and Post 3 are up for election. Post 2 candidates are independent Ryan Radepsky and current Board of Education member Amy Parrish, who is a Republican. Post 3 candidates are independent Melissa Eagling and Republican Ryan Hammock. There are 5 members on the Board of Education. All of them right now are currently Republican. Only one of them is running for re-election this season. So what does the Board of Education do? One of the primary functions is to make policies for the school systems in Oconee County to follow. Lancaster hopes the outcome of the elections will allow for a fresh perspective on the board.
And just continue to go along with the progress of the county. Keep up with the growth so that the kids are not ever getting behind, and just making sure that we're evolving just as quickly as the world around us is evolving.
Gabrielle Vitale, Grady Newsource.
Now we're still waiting on the rest of the results, but we will keep you updated. Back to you, Justin.
Thanks, Gabrielle, and we'll look forward to hearing those Post 2 and 3 election seats, or I'm sorry, the other seats. Now, as we're taking it back out to our digital center, where reporter Ashley Balsavius shows you how our digital team is keeping up with the race results and more. Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I'm joined here by one of our associate producers, Grace Maines, who is working on Instagram and Facebook content throughout the night. First wanted to show you, make sure you're following us on all our social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, Grace, like I said, she has been working on Instagram and TikTok tonight. So, Grace, what have you been working on so far?
Yeah, so for the past couple of hours, I've really just been curating some posts to push out content. So these past 4 posts have been me. And then recently on our TikTok page, I posted one asking our staff how they're feeling about tonight. Most of them really hyped up on caffeine and really prepared to go out into the polls.
Yeah. And what else are you planning to do on social media tonight?
Really just run around the building with the rest of my digital team and try to get content, hopefully ask our panel some questions to push out content, and pester our on-site teams for more photos and videos.
Great, and yeah, make sure to follow us on our social channels. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Ashley. You may have noticed a few questions on our ballot this year. We'll explain when we bring you more of your midterm coverage next for you.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
You're home before sunrise, on top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go.
Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource Election 2022. We'll get to those ballot measures later, but first, we're heading over to Oglethorpe County, where Grady Newsource reporter Aisha Schultz is live with an update. Aisha?
Over here in Oglethorpe County, we have 3 out of 3 precincts currently being counted in the room next to me. So hopefully we'll get results for those soon. Oglethorpe is a historically red county with no Democrat winning in the past 3 elections. Early voting numbers are officially in though, and write-ins are still being counted. Of the early voting numbers, Walker is ahead with 48.19% of 469 votes, and Kemp is also currently in the lead with 54.44%. In more relative to the county races, Trey Rhodes, the Republican incumbent for House seat 124, is currently in the lead with 54.80%. Back to you.
Thanks, Aisha. Now let's go over to our digital center with Ashley Balsavius.
You're on. Thanks, Justin. Georgia voters broke records this year as we saw record turnout for early voting, with 2.2 million Georgia voters casting their ballots early, 300,000 of them absentee, bringing the total to, again, 2.5 million. We can take a look at this line chart to compare our early voting numbers from 2018 and 2020 and this year. You can see here, starting about 29 days from the election. Now, these are just absentee ballot numbers, but once we get to around 22 days, that's when early voting started this year. Once we hit that 22 point, you can see how our numbers in 22 start to increase more significantly than the numbers from 2018. And then as we continue to look at how it grows, obviously we saw more early voting numbers in the 2020 presidential election. The most important thing to get from this graphic is that while we're not reaching presidential level numbers, we are still getting a lot more turnout this year for the midterms than we did in 2018. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you for that update, Ashley. Political campaigns rely on sophisticated data analytics and targeted social media advertising to reach voters. But even with those high-tech advances, campaign workers say there's still a need for the low-tech approach of knocking on doors and talking directly to voters. Reporter Ireland Hayes recently spent a Sunday with local canvassers doing their best to bring the personal touch to this year's race for the State House District 120.
Joan Curtis gives her driver, Julie Range, directions through the Forest Heights neighborhood of Athens, Georgia, where their team was assigned a list of names and addresses. Sundays after game day are usually full of rest and relaxation. As most Athens residents enjoy the day from the comfort of their couch, these ladies have a job to do: getting people to the polls, one door at a time. The team is out canvassing for Mocha Jasmine Johnson, who is running for the Georgia House District 120 seat. The seat is one of many up for grabs on this year's ballot in the battleground state, with the control of the Georgia House hinging on who holds it. For Jacqueline Elsner, the pressure is on to secure Johnson a spot in the Georgia House. Johnson is running against incumbent Houston Gaines, and Elsner believes that canvassing is what will make or break this race.
All the mailers and text messages and phone calls, they help, but the most effective thing is to talk to a voter face to face.
But the group's job is not just to encourage people to vote for Mocha, it's getting people to vote in general, clearing up any misconceptions about Election Day along the way.
But I think voters get confused.
Joan Curtis, co-chair of Indivisible Georgia District 10, says that many people are confused about voting procedure after recent redistricting and the passing of House Bill 202 that introduced new restrictions.
A lot of people are afraid to use the absentee ballot. Some people are afraid to vote early.
Curtis says that the key to having your voice heard is getting out and voting.
I think for every election we should get out and vote. It's our voice. It's all we can do.
The team wrapped up their day after 3 hours of canvassing. Ireland Hayes, Grady Newsource.
Next up, We go live to Madison County, where reporter Jim Rogers brings you an update on what local seats are on the ballot this year and how the results are looking as your votes continue to be counted. Jim, what do you have?
Hey, thanks, Justin. Yeah, so things are really heating up in Madison County. As you can see, it's a very busy Board of Elections room. So we're only reporting between 28 and 34%. For the District 47 seat, Ginn is up with 5,358 votes, while Scott Jr. only has 1,660 votes, reporting at 34.76%. In District 3, Frank May has 765, Larry Gresham only has 348 with 28% reporting. And then we have for the district seat for the Board of Commissioners in District 5, we have Jay Doster with 829, Henrietta Brown at 345, reporting at 28%. And then for the governor race here in Madison County as well, Brian Kemp is up at 5,800, Stacey Abrams 1,365, and Oliver, the Libertarian candidate, is only at 130 with only 34% report. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you for that update, Jim. In addition to voting for candidates, elections are also providing the opportunity for communities to vote on proposals. Maddie McCaffrey has her own finger on the pulse to break down this year's ballot questions. Maddie?
Yes, Justin, this election cycle, 4 questions were on the ballot, and some voters may have been surprised by them. So I'm here to shed some light on the measures that you voted for. This question, that'll pop up on the screen soon, appeared on Georgia ballots this year, and voting yes on it would exempt commercial timber producers from paying taxes on equipment used for timber harvesting and production. Proponents of this change claim it will better support the timber industry. However, it is unclear how much state revenue is raised by timber, so some voters are skeptical, often because tax cuts make people question how the funds will be replaced. If we look to our next graphic that'll be on the screen momentarily, voting yes on this question would extend property tax exemptions to family-owned farms. Voter approval is needed to pass this measure as it was already signed by the Georgia legislature and signed by the governor. From 2000 through 2020, 20 property tax exemption measures appeared on statewide ballots, of which 17 were approved and 3 were defeated. 2 measures that were approved concerned exemptions for certain farm products and equipment. And now we go to our third question, and it will ask whether or not suspended Georgia officials should continue to be paid during their suspension. Voting yes would mean they should not be paid while suspended, and voting no would mean that they should still be paid. This was proposed as a way to save taxpayers money. If an official were later exonerated, however, they would receive back pay for the missed time. And finally, our last question asked voters if local governments should be able to offer tax relief after local disasters. This measure would allow local governments to make this decision if federal action hasn't been taken following a disaster. And back to you, Justin.
2 state amendments, 2 state referendums, and your vote will decide if they are implemented. Thank you, Maddie, for that update. And when we come back, we'll take you live to the gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and incumbent Brian Kemp's headquarters in Atlanta.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
You know, a lot of people say, when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. For her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. And I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a 4th ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
There is a road laid out for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Leading down to the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
What do you think?
I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free, take me down to the river and walk.
We scored? Yeah, we scored. We're going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Wait, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. I'm gonna need that back. No. Kevin!
Welcome back to Grady Newsource Election Report 2022. We're going to go through some of the results that are going to be up on the screen. Right now, we have 16 precincts reporting for the governor of the state of Georgia. Brian Kemp at 50%, the Republican incumbent, and Stacey Abrams on, I believe, was at 49%. But with 16% of the precincts reporting for the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia, Burt Jones, a Republican, at 48%, and Charlie Bailey, the Democrat, looking at 60% over there. These two have been neck and neck in the polls here, and we're back to me. And I believe Grady Newsource reporter Sydney Hood is live at the Abrams campaign tonight. There she is. Sydney, what can you tell us what's going on over there?
Justin, you've got some pretty excited faces right here behind me. All eyes are glued to the TV screen as those results are steadily coming in. The folks here, they like what they're seeing. It's a neck and neck race, but these folks, the energy here, it is remaining high. You've got clapping, you've got dancing, you've got cheering, a very high energy atmosphere, and that's the way supporters of Stacey Abrams have been this entire campaign season. Abrams herself, she's made stops all across Georgia in her Let's Get It Done bus tour, even making a stop in Athens. I caught up with some of her supporters here recently to hear what issues and what changes they want to see Stacey Abrams bring to Georgia.
My name is Stacey Abrams, and I intend to be the next governor of the great state of Georgia.
2 times Stacey Abrams has tried to gain that title. And this crowd wants to see it happen.
You can feel in the atmosphere how much she believes in the people of Georgia.
In an atmosphere of nearly 200, many are first-time voters like UGA freshman Gigi Gasquet.
I feel like listening to her, she can relate in a way that I feel like a lot of people can't.
She listens to Abrams speak on the issues that matter to her most.
I know that she has plans in place that would protect the women of Georgia.
What if we had the right to control our bodies as women?
Other issues include gun violence.
What if we didn't have to be worried about gun violence taking our families and ruining our communities?
And affordable housing.
What if we could have affordable housing throughout the state of Georgia?
I just believe in fairness for all, and not just some. I mean, even if she was a Republican and had those values for everyone, I will vote for her, even though I'm a Democrat. But I believe in fairness all across the board.
Across the board, the turnout for Abrams hopes this second time's the charm.
Let's get it done!
but I am very confident in what she says. She's not only going to talk the talk, she's going to walk the walk.
So we're basically going to be looking at inflation. A number of voters report it was on their minds when they cast their ballots. I have Connor Hendricks. He's live at the incumbent state Governor Brian Kemp's election results watch party in Atlanta with a look at what Governor Kemp says he will do to fight it if he's returned to office. Connor?
Justin, the results so far have Governor Kemp just barely in the lead. But Kemp says if he wins, he has a plan. Before stopping in tonight to watch election results with his supporters, he spent the last few days campaigning hard on his message, even touring through Northeast Georgia with former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie at his side.
How's it going, everybody? Good morning. Good to see you. I appreciate y'all.
As Governor Kemp toured Northeast Georgia Friday to make his case for re-election, one issue stood above the rest.
40-year high inflation.
I have 4 children, and it's brutal right now.
If Governor Kemp wins re-election tonight, he says Georgians can expect another round of rebate checks of nearly $1 billion from the state's budget surplus. Single filers can expect.
The governor has so far not made an appearance here at the election party so far, but we'll continue to monitor results on air and online. In Atlanta, Connor Hendricks, Grady Newsource.
Connor, thank you very much for that update. Now we're going to go into some Oconee County election results. Now these are not official currently, but we're going to go through the current standings right now once we get those up in a second. Here we go. With 100% of the precincts reporting for the Oconee County Board of Education Post 2, Amy Parrish, the Republican incumbent, at 75%, and Ryan Rapetsky, the independent, at 21% for that one. So it looks like Amy Parrish. And then with 100% of the precincts reporting for Oconee County Board of Education Post 3, Ryan Hammock, the Republican, sitting at 73%, and Melissa Eagling, the independent, running at 22%. Those are the 2 Board of Education positions. Now with 100% of the precincts reporting for the Oconee County Commissioner District 2, we have Chuck Horton, Republican, with 100% of the votes since he is running unopposed. We're going to keep going here through these to 100% of the precincts for the Commissioner District 3. B. Amory Hardin, Republican, at 100% since he's running unopposed. So those are the results for the first 4 that we've seen so far. Now we're going to go into 100 precincts of the Oconee River Soil and Water Conservation District. Supervisor Janice Lee Marable at 0%. We'll keep you updated on why that's 0%. And for 100% of the precincts reporting, oh, well, there it goes. So we'll keep you updated on those last 2, but we're going to continue with the economy. The economy has been a huge topic for the Kemp campaign. We have reporter Maddie McCaffrey, who is live in the studio to bring you more information about how it's changing and what it means for you.
That's right, Justin. A major issue on people's minds this election season is the economy. America has seen record levels of inflation in recent months, leading to increased interest rates and prices. This is why people are really concerned about this issue, and in fact, 79% of registered voters say the economy is very important when casting their ballot. So here's what a few Georgia voters told me about this key issue.
The economy is just on my mind and everybody's mind. It's on the mind of my family members.
Every time I go to the grocery store or to the gas pump or to buy anything for my kids, it's so much higher than it was this time last year.
I've just been to the grocery store this week, and my grocery bill is double what it used to be.
It's looking like this year a lot of voters are voting with their wallets in mind. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Maddie. And yes, inflation is a very big factor in this election. And major celebrities have been endorsing and calling out candidates throughout this election season. Reporter Ashley Balsavius is live in the Digital Center to walk you through what they are saying.
Thanks, Maddie. Now let's take a look at how some celebrities and public figures are going to social media to endorse some of our candidates. So first off, we have Stacey Abrams, who brought singer John Legend with her to a campaign event on November 6th. Here's a tweet from Legend saying, "Georgia voters, I am campaigning for Stacey Abrams for governor. We've seen how hard Stacey has worked for all Georgians, so now let's make history on November 8th and vote." Next up, we have Kwanzaa Hall, an Atlanta Democrat who did not post a social for an endorsement, but he did endorse Brian Kemp in a press release last Friday, saying, "While we don't agree on every issue, it's abundantly clear that Brian Kemp is a man of character, a strong leader, and someone who Georgians can trust to put them and their interests first." Former President Barack Obama took to Twitter to tweet a photo of him with governor candidate Stacey Abrams and Senate candidate Raphael Warnock, saying, "Georgia, I'm here today for a simple reason, to ask you to vote." And lastly, we have Herschel Walker. While Warnock was endorsed by Obama, Herschel Walker was endorsed by the late Vince Dooley, who actually narrated one of his recent campaigns. Following Dooley's death, Walker took to Twitter saying, "Thank you, Coach Dooley, for being one of the greatest men I have ever known." Now, Herschel was a freshman when Dooley led the 1980, the Bulldogs, to a national championship in 1980. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
Thank you, and we'll be missing Vince Dooley in our hearts. More from our panel of experts, as well as a deep dive into young voters and the resources available to them in this election cycle.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
It's a deep dish. Is it just you?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far.
A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
You're home before sunrise. On top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource with our live midterms report. But first, we're going to go to our Raphael Warnock live shot with Jake Druckman there. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a couple precincts reporting with 16% for the United States Senate. We have Herschel Walker, the Republican, at 46%, and then the Democratic incumbent, Reverend Raphael Warnock, at 53%. So we have a small amount of precincts reported with Warnock at a little bit of a lead. Now we're going to go to the panel, the path upstairs, with Matthew Welsh. He's joined by a couple of UGA professors. Matthew, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Justin, we're seeing just under 2 million votes here trickling in, and obviously massive national implications for this election. But Dr. Haynes, I'd like to begin with you. What are we seeing here at the local level, specifically in Clark County and the surrounding area?
Well, again, I was looking up some information earlier, but I can give you a general sense. Over 20,000, about 25,000 people, I think, have voted so far in Athens, Georgia. But relative to expectations, especially from some of the the actual campaigns, they're a little disappointed in the turnout in Athens. One could see on the early voting days there were not significant lines anywhere. So for some reason, Athens doesn't seem to have exceeded anyone's expectations about voting.
Anything to your mind as to why that might be the case, specifically for this midterm, maybe?
Well, generally when we think about voting, the act of voting, people have to sometimes be mobilized to vote. A lot of the activity that took place on campus. A lot of students don't vote, or they go home to their counties and vote, or they vote absentee. So perhaps one of the reasons that we might have seen that is because there just wasn't enough, activity or targeting. There was some fundraising, but not as much, perhaps, targeted mobilization.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Bullock, obviously we've seen massive trends in partisanship at the national level. At the local level, however, how big of a factor does partisanship play at the ballot box? And do you think we're seeing that here in the Athens area as well?
Well, yeah, what we're seeing is that people increasingly are voting straight party tickets. Now, it used to be we'd expect some people to kind of hopscotch down their ballot and vote for personalities. And we used to talk about the difference between a party vote and a personal vote. Only thing I think, in instance which we're seeing anything approaching that would be to the extent that a person is probably pretty much of a Republican and is going to vote for Brian Kemp and probably vote for Republican for the other constitutional offices, but crosses over and votes for Raphael Warnock for the Senate. But that's the only example, really, I think we're seeing this year where there's anybody or any substantial number of people who are exercising some judgment based upon the character of the candidates, their personalities, as opposed to simply falling back on their party ID.
Is there any significance to that split ticket phenomenon just being a midterm and that it's not a presidential election?
Well, yeah, I guess what we're really seeing is something moving really towards a European system, where in Europe you don't vote for the person who represents your constituency, you vote for the person you want to be as prime minister. And I think that's what's driving a lot of what's happening here in Georgia this year, but also nationally, at least with regard to Senate races.
Professor Watson, we've seen, again, national calls for questions into vote or election integrity, questioning votes in national races and local races. Do you think we've seen any effects of that here at the Athens level? And what does that mean for our election systems moving forward?
Well, I think there was a lot of coverage regarding the election law in Georgia, and I think that the level of voting turnout that we've seen and the number of individuals who've been able to effectively vote without substantial delay seems to belay concerns about that in my estimation. It's not turned out to be the level of or the order of magnitude issue that a lot of the critics suggested that it would. And so we haven't seen a lot of it this time around, and so I think that it's really different than it was framed as.
Let me add a little bit to what Joe said, and that is that 4 years ago, claims of voter suppression was a very effective technique that Stacey Abrams used to mobilize support. And we haven't even heard much of that this year.
That's right, Justin. That's obviously something that we're going to keep our eye on up here with our panelists. But for now, as votes continue to come in, we'll send it back down to you guys in the studio.
Thank you for the update, Matthew. Now, we were waiting for some of our shots at the Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker live shots to get back online. We're going to start with Jake Druckman. He's over at the Reverend Raphael Warnock's campaign. Jake, what is the atmosphere around there? Seems like he needs to unmute himself. Yep. Well, I guess he needs to unmute himself. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll go back to him and we'll get you that perspective. But now we're going to go to, I believe, Spencer Pipkin. He's over at we're going to go to the Herschel Walker campaign. Spencer, what do you have for us?
Hey, Justin. So it's pretty loud, as you can hear back here, as Fox News has been giving updates on the status of prominent Republicans like Governor Ron DeSantis and nominee Carrie Lake. Republicans here have been getting electrified. So there might be some technical difficulties tonight, but there's no shortage of electricity here. The crowd is very excited. They're greeting each other. We talked to a couple of supporters. I actually spoke to Mike Collins, who's running for a congressman in the 10th district, which covers all of our counties in Grady Newsource's bureau. So a lot of good things are happening right here for Georgia Republicans, they say. So we're just going to keep on updating you right now. As you know, pretty early still, so we're just going to be sitting back and waiting by and see what we can learn for you. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you for that update, Spencer. But there are about 8.3 million new eligible voters today. That's according to Tufts University's Information and Research Department. A number of them are young voters who are eligible to cast their ballot for the very first time. Grady Newsource reporter Micaiah Costin shows you how University of Georgia students have a variety of resources to take advantage of to learn how to take part in the voting process. Let's take a look.
College is a place where you really kind of learn like who you are and your beliefs. At least that was for me. And I think that like being in an environment where you're kind of like learning what your beliefs are, you are more free to kind of challenge your ideas. And so if you're kind of older, you're kind of in a specific circle of people that kind of reinforce your beliefs, but college is kind of a place to challenge your beliefs. So I think you come to better conclusions when you're in college. So that's why I think that college students in particular should
young voters haven't had the chance yet to become what we call habitual voters.
We have a really big say in what goes on, and a lot of the policies that are implemented affect us, like financially and just like our well-being overall. So it's important that like as young adults that we get to like voice our opinions.
University of Georgia political science professor Alexa Banker explains how having a say in the election process grows into a habit.
Voting is a habit, almost like exercising, right? So the more you do it, the more it becomes a norm you're trying to comply with. And so for many of our young voters, they simply haven't had the time yet to make voting a habit. And that is definitely true, not just for young people in the US, but also for young people in many other democracies.
It affects their lives. It's not just like whoever's in power, it doesn't matter. It affects you, what happens within the government and Congress and even local elections.
Voting does matter, and Bankert has some advice for first-time voters or young voters in general. She says the main thing was to inform yourself early on voting and study the candidates and what they stand for. A few websites you can visit for more information is www.georgiavoter.guide for any questions you may have regarding voting in Georgia. If you want to check your registration status and even get a practice ballot to fill out, you can visit mvp.sos.ga.gov. Micaiah Costin with Grady Newsource.
Speaking of voter registration for younger voters, there's digital campaigning for voter registration. Ashley Balsavius is going to walk us through what that looks like. Ashley, what do you have?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So in recent years, we've seen an increase in digital campaigning. Now, you might be wondering, what is digital campaigning? Well, we have an article on our Grady Newsource website that explains exactly what it is, primarily focusing on text messages. That's been a way that a lot of people have been mobilizing voters in recent years. Almost 1 million more voters, Georgia voters, showed up to polls in the 2020 election than they did in the previous 2016 cycle, and a lot of that is due to digital campaigning. A political action committee here in Athens called Bluebird has mobilized voters through texting, phone banking, and social media, so that's all a part of what digital campaigning is. Up on the screen, I have some text messages that I have received. This one from Vote Riders, which is an organization that provides rides to people to the polls, telling me to make sure I have what ID I need, and then one I received earlier this morning that today is election day and here are some resources. So that's all for now. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
Thank you for that update. So we're going to try one more time with the live shot at our Warnock campaign. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but I do have Grady Newsource reporter Jake Druckman there. Jake, what is that atmosphere looking like?
Right now at Senator Raphael Warnock's campaign watch party, the spirit is high, the energy is high, music is playing. People behind me, as you can see, are dancing, socializing, having a good time. And for supporters of Raphael Warnock, they have reason to be happy. As the last update I've received from the Georgia Secretary of State's office, around 30% of the vote has been counted, and Warnock has maintained a small lead so far through the night. However, that could change at any point through the night. So right now, spirits are high. So far, we've heard from multiple guest speakers. Throughout the night, including the sheriff of DeKalb County, as well as Augusta Mayor Hardy Davis Jr., all of whom have spoken in support of Senator Warnock, although the senator himself has not yet made an appearance.
Thank you, Jake. Seems like a crowded environment, but an exciting one. It was good to hear from you. But now there's some big news coming out of the Georgia Capitol building. Georgia House Speaker David Ralston has announced that he will no longer be leading his fellow legislators, citing health concerns. Governor Brian Kemp weighed in on the speaker's decision to step down after this session.
Do you? Don't you worry about it. Put those around, because when you go to the supermarket, you're in the church parking lot, you're at the dry cleaners, you're at the soccer field or the football field, anywhere you are in the next 4 days, I want that sticker on. Because people come up to you and say, "You're voting for Kemp?" You'll say, "Not only am I voting for Kemp, I know him. I've looked him in the eye. I've taken his measure as a man. And I believe in him. And I've donated to him. And I'm working for him. And I'm asking you to vote for him because I know him and I trust him." Let me tell you, everybody, that's the most important endorsement he can get in the next 4 days. Are you committed to doing that over the next 4 days to get him elected? Now that's the nice part of my closing.
Now, that was Senator Chris Christie standing next to Governor Brian Kemp. According to Pew Research Center, only 15% of Americans say health care in this country is the best in the world. Leading 63% of people do have health care at the forefront of their concerns this election season. As candidates have hit the road sharing their goals and platforms, health care has been a big topic of debate. In one of the recent gubernatorial debates, the topics of health care and Medicare came up. Stacey Abrams stated that the debate that, quote, "The work that I do is working with people to find out how we get solutions. Medicaid expansion is a perfect example. We have 19 hospitals at risk of closure, joining the 6th hospitals under this governor," end quote. In response, Governor Kemp stated in the debate that, quote, "There have been 600,000 people added to the Medicaid roll since I've become governor." Continuing on, he said, "The problem is it's a broken government program that she wants the government deciding your health care. That will also kick 200,000 people off of their private sector health care." Here's what one voter said about why health care is their #1 issue. Be playing it in a second here.
#1 issue on my mind is definitely healthcare, and the reason why, because as a pre-med student, I'm very passionate about providing adequate healthcare to rural communities.
Now, when we come back, live updates from the headquarters of Georgia senatorial candidates. Incumbent Raphael Warnock and competitor Herschel Walker. We'll go back to them.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I think I finally found.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far.
A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource, our election report in 2022. We're going to go to Barrow County. I'm sorry, we're not going to Barrow County. We're going to Ashley. Apparently there was an election blood moon. Ashley, what can you say about this?
Now, if you woke up early to go to the polls this morning, you might have been surprised to see that the moon was red. Now, don't be alarmed. This is called a total lunar eclipse or a blood moon, and it's the first time a total lunar eclipse has been visible in the United States on Election Day. It was only visible here in Northeast Georgia from around the hours of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. But if you missed it, don't be alarmed, because I have some photos up here from students that submitted me them. So right here we have a photo from UGA student Jordan Brisby. Next, we have this amazing photo with some blue and red and orange hues of the lunar eclipse from this morning. This was actually taken through a telescope from one of the students in UGA's astronomy club. We have another photo here, and then we have this photo more far away, and then in this photo you can maybe spot the distant blood moon. And this is the last time a total lunar eclipse will happen until 2025. Back to you, Justin.
2025 lunar eclipse. Now we're going to go to Barrow County, where we have Grady Newsource reporter Mary Lou Masters live there, and she's going to give us some election results. Mary Lou, what do you have for us?
Hey, Justin. So right now we have 62.5% of the precincts are in, and one of the locally contested races here has been called. So for the special election in Bethlehem, Post 3 City Council, Eric E. Daly has won that election with 85 votes. And going back up to the top, the governor's race, Brian Kemp has 17,385 votes. Stacey Abrams has 6,297 votes. Hazel has 221 votes. Then down to the Senate race, Raphael Warnock has 7,050 votes. Walker has 16,025 votes. Oliver has 700 votes. The District 4 local election here for the County Commission, Alex Ward has 2,719 votes. Judy Bevers, the Democrat, has 1,035 votes. And then the Board of Education District 1 race here in Barrow, Kenny Lumpkin, the incumbent, has 976 votes. And Kirsten Kiki Bradford has 2,453 votes. So those are all of the results that we have right now for you, and we'll keep you updated throughout the night. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Mary Lou. In 2020, Reverend Raphael Warnock had 29.4% in Barrow County and Kelly Loeffler at 70.6%. So we'll keep you updated on those results. But we're going to go into some other results. Right now, with 41 of the precincts reporting for the governor of the state of Georgia, incumbent Brian Kemp. We're going to go now to the lieutenant governor. 31% of the precincts reported for the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia. Burt Jones at 49% and Charlie Bailey, the Democrat, at 49%. Neck and neck right now. Looks like Burt Jones came back a little bit. We're also going to continue going over there to the United States Senate with 41% of the precincts reporting. We have Herschel Walker at 47% and Reverend Raphael Warnock, the Democrat incumbent, at 52%. Moving along now, we have with 31% of the precincts reporting, Georgia Commissioner of Agriculture. We have Tyler Harper, the Republican, at 52%, and Nikita Hemingway, the Democrat, at 46%. Nikita Hemingway is the first black female to run for that position. Now we're going back to, with 32% of the precincts reporting, the Georgia Commissioner of Insurance with John King, the Republican incumbent, at 53%, and Janice Robinson, the Democrat, at 47%. That position open with Jim Beck being arrested for an embezzlement indictment. Now we're going to go to the path with Matthew over there with a couple of the UGA professors. Matthew, what do they have to say about this?
Here, specifically Secretary of State and Attorney General. What are the significance of some of these maybe lesser known elections in the state, and what are we seeing here with some of these early results?
I suspect what we're going to see is that people for those kinds of contests are pretty much going to vote their party lines, so that those should track, I think, pretty closely to the vote shares that go for Kemp and for Abrams.
If we're seeing such a difference between Kemp and Herschel Walker, does that difference make it all any kind of sense to you when you're looking at these elections as well?
Yeah, because throughout the polling process up until Election Day, about 10% of Republicans said that they were not going to vote for Herschel Walker. And so I think we're seeing that manifest in the fact that Walker is trailing Kemp by several percentage points.
I'll turn to you, Professor Watson. We've seen a lot of candidates across the country, even some here in Georgia like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Collins, who have staked their campaigns on false claims of election fraud and other ideas similar to that. Do you feel that that's just rhetoric that they're promoting in an effort to kind of win over a base, or what's the aim with that kind of strategy?
Well, I think for some of these candidates, it was a price of admission in terms of an endorsement from President Trump, and I think he made it very clear that he supported candidates early on in Republican primaries that were in fact election deniers, and that endorsement meant a lot. I mean, if you look at Kari Lake in Arizona, you look at some of those races, those candidates are there because of that endorsement, and that's why they did it. But it is a substantial trend, and I think that when we look at what we anticipate will be a Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, we're going to have an awful lot of new incoming freshman members that are election deniers, and it's going to make the job for someone like Kevin McCarthy very, very difficult, because they're not going to be traditional establishment Republicans. And I think we're seeing that across the country at the state level as well as in congressional districts.
Dr. Haynes, I want to turn to you now. On a similar vein, the party message that goes along with a candidate who runs like that, how effective is that message to a base, and how do they go about promoting it in the way that they have so far in these midterms?
So the big lie and promoting that, well, remember, the big lie has been a message that's been repeated from around the time period of 2016. So you've got years and years and years of people doing this, and we haven't seen a lot of pushback from within the party, and that's always what's required. There were no consequences. President Trump was allowed to continue to say whatever he said, and literally from his own party, there was no chastisement. And in fact, there were other people who sort of jumped on the bandwagon and found that the more they lied, the more they were rewarded for that. And so I think Professor Watson had it right when he talked about sort of the price of the cost of admission. Now, we haven't talked about Raffensperger's campaign, and earlier you had mentioned about some people crossing party over to vote for Warnock. I think we might see some people crossing over to vote for Raffensperger, even if they're Democrats, because they believe that he deserves their vote for standing up against Trump and the big lie, because that's something that really matters to them. And they may also be moderates who feel that we need to bring moderate candidates from both parties back into the discourse. So, short-term gains, but long-term consequences, not only for their party potentially, but for our institutions.
Dr. Bullock, one more for you here. We've seen even on a local or on a statewide scale here some fragmentation within the Republican Party. When you look at Kemp and Walker and maybe a little bit of strife there, what's the significance of that at the state level, and how do you think that might translate to national seats as well?
Well, when it translates to national seats is if Walker is running far enough behind Kemp, then he's not going to win. If he doesn't win, and depending on what happens the rest of the country, and these other 34 Senate seats that are up for grabs, it may determine whether or not Republicans can take control of the Senate. That has been a major objective of theirs, and they may come up one short again, as they did last time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Bullock. Justin, we'll send it back down to you in the studio. Definitely some more interesting storylines to keep an eye on up here.
Thank you, Matthew. And yes, indeed, that Senate race is getting a lot of coverage throughout the country. But now we're going to go to our panel. Our Grady Newsource reporter, Jim Rogers, he's over at Madison County. He's going to give us some election results. Jim, what do you have for us?
Yeah, welcome back to Madison County, Justin. So as you can see, things are now finally kind of calming down here in the Board of Elections. We're close to going to be reporting soon 100%. But for now, Franken is starting to pull away for the District 47 senator seat. He currently has 7,016 votes, while Colin Scott Jr. only has 2,311. For the Board of Commissioners in District 3, Frank May is sitting at 839 votes, while Larry Gresham, the challenger, is only sitting at 389. We're reporting at 31% in that election. For the Board of Commissioners in District 5, Jay Doster is now sitting at 1,503, and you have Henrietta Brown sitting at 630. We're reporting 52.24% from there. And then for the mayor of Colbert County, a tight race. We're sitting with Gregory Magnum at 131 votes. His challenger, Tim Wyatt, is sitting at 157. This is a close race and we're reporting 65.86%. Something to note too, though, in Madison County, some of the cities in Madison County, you weren't able to get a distilled drink. What this means is something like a margarita, some of the special drinks at Madison County, well, that may soon change. There's a new proposal up during this election. And right now, the yays to allow distilled drinks are sitting at 6,430 votes. The noes are sitting at 2,877. The total votes collected for this have been 9,307. So pretty soon, we might be able to enjoy a happy hour here in all of Madison County. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you, Jim. Interesting. Some distilled drinks may be coming to Madison County, but we're going to pivot over to Oconee County, where Gabrielle Vitale is live with some other results from that specific county. Gabby, what do you have for us?
Yes, Justin. So all 8 precincts have closed now, and they're expecting at least 16 provisional votes. But with that in mind, the Board of Education 2 seat was taken by Amy Parrish with 74.5%. And then the Board of Education 3 position was taken by Ryan Hammock with 73.2%. Now, which is interesting, back on the 2021 election ballot, there was a T-SWAS vote, which was voted no. But now on this year's ballot, it has been voted for yes by 51.3% of the votes. Back to you, Justin.
And thank you very much for that, Gabby. And when we come back, we'll have some more results.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s.
Oh, I'm so cold.
Would be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource. We're going to do a read-through of a couple of the election results that are coming up shortly. We'll see what the current numbers are and the current precincts that may be reporting. So we'll be waiting on those in a second. Here we go. So for the Commissioner of Insurance, with 32% of the precincts reported, the Georgia Commissioner of Insurance has John King, the Republican incumbent, at 53%, and Janice Robinson, the Democrat, at 47%. John King, the incumbent that was appointed by excuse me, with 0% of the precincts reporting. Georgia House District 32, Chris Irwin, the Republican incumbent, being unopposed. He's looking at 100% of the votes there for the House District 32. We're going to keep going here. We're to 33 with 0% of the precincts reported for Georgia House District 33. Alan Powell, the Republican incumbent who ran unopposed, looking at 100%. Now we're going to go to more with 0% of the precincts reporting. Oh, we're back to me. Now we're going to be going over to Clark County, Athens, Clark County, and we have, what do you have for us?
Thanks,
Cecilia.
Justin. So far, 16 of 24 of the precincts have reported that the Democrats are in the lead. So far, with the U.S. Senate, Raphael Warnock has 72.3% of the votes. And looking at the state governor's race, Stacey Abrams has 68.10%, and Brian Kemp has 31.18%. Looking into the local referendum, citizens seem to be in favor of that. And if so, then citizens can see a lower decrease in their tax exemption. The ACC commissioners initially requested to freeze the property taxes for low income, but local Republican officials decided that this may be a better fit for them as well as for the owners of low income housing. I will keep you up to date as we still have a few precincts left, even though over half have reported. But live here from the Board of Elections office, we'll keep you up to date with Athens Clarke County. Back to you.
Michelle, thank you very much for that update. Now we're going to go over to Oglethorpe County, where Aisha is there, our Grady Newsource reporter. Aisha, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Justin. Over here at Oglethorpe County, all 3 of the precincts have reported with a 64.27 voter turnout. This is lower than the 75% of the 2020 election and also lower than the 70% of the 2016 or 2018 election. In the races in Oglethorpe County, Kat Hawkins has Trey Rhodes has once again taken House seat 124 with 72.21% of the votes. Tyler Harper has taken the Commissioner of Agriculture seat with 72.21% of the votes, which is major for Oglethorpe County as we have issues over here.
Some technical difficulties there. Sorry to cut you off, Aisha, but we're going to go over to Ashley Balsavius. She has some social media fact checking. Ashley, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Justin. Now, when you're scrolling through social media tonight, getting updates on the election, it's important to note that not everything you might be looking at may be true. Now more than ever, there are a bunch of tools out on these social platforms to help you fact check and verify your information. One of them I have pulled up here on Twitter. If you go to the Twitter Explore page, there's a page called Fact Checkers Debunk Misleading Claims Ahead of Midterms. It's being updated. It might be updated as we speak, but throughout the night, different news organizations, all verified accounts, are going through certain claims that are being made and fact checking them, or just saying that they are outright wrong. Even things that are misleading. For example, this one, PolitiFact, is saying Ted Cruz's misleading claim that only Democratic cities take days to count votes. And there's a video on that. News organizations like Reuters, AFP Fact Check are on here, making sure that we're combating misinformation. And Twitter's not the only social media platform that has resources out there to combat misinformation. Meta, which owns TikTok and Instagram, has spent over $5 million this year in fact-checking and for media literacy initiatives leading up to the midterms. Meta has sent out 80 million election-related notifications so far this year, making sure everyone is informed. Also on TikTok, if you watch any election coverage on TikTok, especially if you're following that GAPOL hashtag, you might see something at the bottom of your page where you can get more information on the election. There's resources on there about voter hotlines, and also there are a few tools on TikTok to help combat misinformation. Back to you, Justin.
In these last few months, every time you watch TV, a streaming service, or browse social media, you may have noticed a political ad or 10 pop up. Many of these ads have been utilized in the Senate race as attack ads. The big question is whether or not these ads make a difference in elections. Political analyst Bill Crane discussed with me the impact that these ads you cannot get away from. We plan it shortly here.
There are things that research tells us that they do pretty consistently. They don't necessarily cause you to vote for the candidate you're being espoused to vote against. They oftentimes cause you to question the candidate you're potentially considering voting for, that the negative ad is aimed at, and just not vote.
Now we're going to go back upstairs to the Path with Matthew Welsh. Matthew, what do you have for us?
And speaking of some of those divisive political ads, just what is really the message behind those, and what is the reason for some of those coming out with some of those really nasty stories?
Well, I mean, I think you have the content there. I mean, I think when you look at some of the controversies that Herschel Walker has found himself in, I mean, you would be remiss. I mean, you'd be failing your campaign if you didn't capitalize on some of those things and cut ads on those things. And so what happens is in most races where you have tested candidates, you vetted them and you have an understanding of what their weaknesses and their vulnerabilities are. But in Walker, you have a first-time candidate, and people are kind of like discovering these things as they come up, and that makes them particularly susceptible to newly developed ads. But again, if you had someone who has admitted to all of the things that he's admitted to, there's no denial of the fact or no controversy in terms of his the issues of violence in his family life, and then all the other allegations. How could you not do an ad like that? And you could say some of the same things about some of the negative ads that have been thrown at Warnock regarding his marriage and things that occurred there. So again, most races don't have things that are that salacious, but when you do, you'd be remiss not to use them.
Dr. Bullock, we recently saw the state of Georgia redistrict. What are the implications of that on a statewide basis, and are we seeing any of those effects play out tonight?
Yeah, the only district in Georgia that could possibly be considered to be a toss-up would be the 2nd district, and that's the one extreme southwest Georgia. It was the most underpopulated district, so when they redrew it, they had to go and bring in 100,000 new people. For those 100,000 new people, Sanford Bishop, who has represented that area for 30 years, it's like it's an open seat. So he has to work a lot harder to go out and introduce himself, because these are people, he hasn't been showing up at their fall festivals. He hasn't been sending out commiserations when people there have died and those. So he has to work a lot harder. It also became a little bit whiter. Now, most of his career, he has represented a majority white district. He's been very closely balanced between black and white. 2012, it became majority black. It is no longer majority black, but he has established strong relations with a lot of white farmers down there because he's concentrated on doing ag work, and that is agriculture heartland for Georgia. So yeah, he's having to run a lot harder. Probably holds on though.
Dr. Haynes?
So I was going to add that the one thing we haven't talked about tonight at all is the House and Senate seats in Georgia and the Georgia General Assembly. I would mention that redistricting probably that's one area where it probably has affected some of those down ballot races, because there are a number of battleground House seats, for example, and Democrats are defending more of them. So even though they may be hoping, to add to their seats in the Georgia House, for example, redistricting probably puts some of those Democratic seats in jeopardy. A little bit close.
And Professor Watson, on the heels of January 6th and the violence we saw on that day, how have there been transitions or changes in terms of election worker safety, candidate safety? What are we seeing out of that?
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing a real uptick in political violence following the attack on the Capitol. A number of us have friends who are in Congress or elected or staff, and I know that many of them have had to undertake private security measures, and those are very, very real thing. But they're very real, credible death threats that are coming into a lot of elected officials, and I think it's something that's very problematic systemically, because it's very hard to induce and recruit good people to serve if they think there's a specter of violence or threat. I think we've also seen the recent attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband. There's potentially an extension of that. So there's a lot that's going on that is a very problematic trend. And I think it's very real, and I think it's very material, and I think it's going to be a challenge to address it.
Certainly some good insight there on campaign worker safety and on redistricting within our state. Stick around with us. We'll have some more updates as election results come in. And Justin, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Matthew. And when we come back, we're going to look at one big issue for voters is crime and why it matters in the state attorney general election.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
You're home before sunrise, on top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
The state attorney general has legal power to challenge state and federal laws in court. That is why, when you went to the polls today, your vote could make a difference in how one of your major concerns is handled: crime. Grady Newsource reporter Spencer Pipkin introduces you to the 2 candidates competing for your vote to serve as Georgia's top cop.
In the final push to the campaign, incumbent Attorney General Chris Carr has touted his record as a tough-on-crime candidate.
Another area that we focused on this past legislative session, it was our priority, was to stand up a first-of-its-kind, historic statewide gang prosecution unit. 60 to 90% of all violent crime is gang affiliated. And who are the communities that are most often terrorized by gangs? Lower income, racially diverse, and immigrant populations.
Democratic challenger State Senator Jen Jordan previously told Newsource reporter Sydney Hood that everyone wants safety. Since then, she has continued to drive that message home to Georgia voters.
Everybody wants a safe community. You know, you want to feel safe, and people don't feel safe right now. Whether we're talking about, violent street gangs, whether we're talking about gun violence and all of the unlawful guns on the streets, or whether we're even talking about women not even feeling comfortable about going to their doctor.
While crime is a major focus of the race between current Attorney General Chris Carr and State Senator Jen Jordan, student loan forgiveness and abortion are also issues both candidates have discussed with voters across Georgia. State Senator Jordan has been an outspoken advocate of reproductive freedoms throughout her time in the state Senate, speaking on CNN and even testifying before the U.S. Congress. She says the woman's right to choose is one of her top priorities, and if elected Attorney General, it will be one of her first tasks.
Justice Clarence Thomas signaled in his concurring opinion, really that the next stop was to overturn the bill that deals with same-sex marriage, contraception, even, right? So it's one of those things where there is an all-out assault on just freedoms and rights of people, whether they're women or men in this state. And I think that the Attorney General really has a role to kind of stand up and say that's not right.
Carr has been critical of Jordan and her response, saying the job of the Attorney General is to defend the Constitution, regardless of whether he agrees with the laws or not.
Look, I don't fault anybody who doesn't like the laws of the state of Georgia or the federal laws. But if you don't like the law of the state, you run for the legislature. If you don't like the federal laws in this nation, you run for Congress. But you don't run for Attorney General, because our job is to uphold the laws of this state.
Voters had their chance to pick the Attorney General in today's general election. For anyone needing to verify the status or location of your absentee ballot, you should go to www.mvp.sos.ga.gov to check the status of your absentee ballot and make sure your vote was counted. Reporting with Grady Newsource, my name is Spencer Pipkin.
One thing to note about both of these candidates is that they both hold degrees from the University of Georgia. Particularly in the South, we're going to there. With 46% of the precincts reporting the Georgia Attorney General, with Chris Carr, the Republican incumbent, at 50%, the Terry College of Business graduate and Lumpkin School of Law. Jennifer Jordan, the Democrat, at 49%, holding a law degree from the University of Georgia, and the independent Martin Cohen at 1%. So currently there would not be any runoff. Now we're going to go to Oglethorpe County, where we have Aisha Schultz. Aisha, what can you update us from that county?
Yes, over here in Oglethorpe County, 100% of precincts have reported, with Republicans once again taking the county. Something important to note about this election round is that voter turnout is actually lower than previous elections. In 2020, voter turnout was at 75%, and in this election, voter turnout is at 64.27%. Oglethorpe is historically in the top 15% of counties for voter turnout in Georgia, or in the top 15 of counties for voter turnout in Georgia. So this number might drop them below that. In the current races, Walker has taken the Senate in Oglethorpe County with 68.35% of votes. In Oglethorpe County, Kemp has also won with 73.38%. And in more local elections, Trey Rhodes, the Republican incumbent for House seat 124, has won with 72.21%. Back to you.
Thank you, Aisha. And now we're going to look at those results in Oglethorpe County. They'll be shortly up on the screen. There we go. With 100% of the precincts reporting, Broad River Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor Ted Hughes is leading at 100% and unchallenged. Now we're going to go to the next in Oglethorpe. 100% of the precincts reporting for the Oglethorpe County T-Splots. That is special purpose local option sales tax, looking at 50% for, I believe, a yay. Now we're going to go to the Georgia Senate District 5. Now District 45. So we have Clint Dixon and Madeline Jones. Clint Dixon with that is probably not right with 0% of the precincts reporting, but what we're seeing from Georgia Senate District 45, Clint Dixon from Gwinnett, Georgia, is at 59%, and then Madeline Jones, the Democrat, at 41% from Norcross, Georgia. Now, at District 46, with 20% of the precincts reporting, Bill Cowsert, the Republican from Athens, Georgia, and from the University of Georgia. Then we're going to Andrew Ferguson, the Democrat, at 42%, also a UGA grad. Now to Georgia House District 120, we have Houston Gaines. He's the Republican incumbent who's been in the seat since 2019, sitting on nearly 400,000 entering the home stretch. And Mocha Johnson, the Democrat, at 39%, who is a co-owner with her husband at the United Group of Artists. She's also running off of the Freedom Plan. Going back to Georgia Senate District 24, with 29% of the precincts reporting Lee Anderson, the Republican incumbent, unchallenged at 100% for that one. We're going to keep moving on here through these districts. Back to 120 with 25% of the precincts reporting. For Georgia House District 120, Houston Gaines. We're going to keep going to 121 with 50% of the precincts reported. Marcus Whitehour, the Republican incumbent, who was representing District 119 at 61%. And then Democrat Jeff Auerbach, the Democrat challenger with a PhD in political science and an assistant professor at Emory University in Oxford College. We'll keep going down the line here. Probably going, so we're back to me. So we're gonna go to break now. And when we come back, we'll have some more.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
You know, a lot of people say, when you're going somewhere, you don't want to look back. But I beg to differ. for her to see her father celebrate his graduation, it's the best feeling in the world. I can't lie and say it was easy. But sometimes you just have to stop everything and take it in. I looked at everything in a different light. I realized it started with me going back and getting my high school diploma.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
There is a road laid out for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Leading down to the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
What do you think?
I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free, take me down to the river and walk.
And we're back, Grady Newsource. Election 2022. We're going to move over to Madison County, where Jim Rogers is going to give us an update. Jim, what do you have for us? We're going to be seeing him in a second, so we'll wait here. But we're waiting on Jim. There he is. Jim, what do you have for us?
Newsource tonight. As you can see, all the hustle and bustle is gone. We are shutting down for the evening. So the final results from Madison County as of now. So for District 47 for the senator seat, Frank Ginn has started to really pull away now. He sits at 9,215 votes as compared to his opponent, columnist Scott, who's only sitting at 3,000 even. Frank Ginn has held the position actually since 2010 as an incumbent Republican, while columnist Scott is going to be a first-time challenger who's a Democrat. For the Board of Commissioners District 3, you have Frank May, who's sitting at 1,608 votes. He's a Republican incumbent. And you have Larry Gresham, who is sitting at 666 as the Democrat. Spooky. All right. Then for the Board of Commissioners in District 5, you have Derek Doster, who's sitting at 1,752. He's a Republican incumbent. And then you have Henrietta Brown, who is a first-time Democrat running against him, who's sitting at 739. For the mayor of Colbert County, this has been the tightest race that we've seen all night here in Madison. You have Gregory Magrum sitting at 131 votes, but he's currently down to Tim Wyatt, who is sitting at now 158. And the moment you all have been waiting for, too, for the sale of distilled drinks. The yeses have it right now at 8,527 votes. The noes have it at 3,686 votes. So looks like Madison County will be enjoying those happy hours sooner rather than later. Thanks for stopping by with us tonight in Madison County. Justin, back to you.
Jim, thank you for the update. And now we're going to be looking at the graphics of these commissioners. So with a certain percentage of the precincts reporting what we see right now, I can't tell you, but for Madison County Commissioner District 5, we have Derek Doster, the Republican incumbent, sitting at an interesting 70.33%. And we'll go to Henrietta Brown, the Democrat challenger, at 30%. And I believe we're going to be looking at more, yes, here with 100% of the precincts reported. The Broad River Soil and Water Conservation Supervisor District, George Smith, at 100%. That was 0 before, so now we're getting the updated results there for those. And we're going to also go to 100% of the precincts reported. The City of Colbert Mayor, we have Gregory Margum at 45% and Tim Wyatt at 55%. Margum, a Republican, losing to Wyatt, the Democrat, at 55 to 45%. Interesting look there. And at 100% of the precincts reporting for the City of Colbert Council, member Post 4, Michelle Bryant Cole at 45% and Chris Peck at 55%. So Chris Peck most likely would be crowned the City of Colbert City Council member for Post 4. Looking there. And now we're going to continue going on for with 100% of the precincts reporting Madison County Commissioner District 4. Brian Kirk, the Republican incumbent, looking unopposed for this election, is looking at 100%. And with 100% of the precincts reported, Madison County Commissioner District 3, Frank May, the Republican incumbent, at 70.71%. And Larry Gresham Sr. at 29%. Interesting to see those percentages here. 100% of the I think that was it. Yes, the special election question. The sale of distilled spirits by the drink, that's what Jim was talking about with the margaritas. Yes at 70% and no at 30.18%. That equals 118, so we'll fact check you there for that. So we're going to pivot out of here to go to some campaigns. First, the Georgia Senate campaign. We're going to go to Herschel Walker. We have Spencer Pipkin there. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the graphic. So 51% of the precincts reporting there. United States Senate, Herschel Walker, Republican at 48%. Raphael Warnock, the Democratic incumbent, at 51%. And Chase Oliver, the Libertarian, at 2%. So if Warnock keeps that percentage over 50, there will not be a Georgia runoff, which is in the Georgia State Constitution. That would probably happen, or will happen, on December 6th. So if Chase Oliver gets any more percentages of that, and none of those candidates can overtake that 50% mark, we will see a runoff election of the top two after that. And now we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to hear some updates at the campaign.
We scored? Yeah, we scored. We're going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Wait, why does my face look like that? I'm playing with these new face filters. Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. I'm gonna need that back. No. Kevin.
I'll take that.
Source. I'm Justin Nemitz, your host, and we're going to go to the Herschel Walker campaign. Sorry, I was taking a snapshot on my desk. There's a lot of papers here, but we're going to go into Spencer Pipkin. He's over at the Herschel Walker. Spencer, what do you have for us?
You can hear some people are happy behind us as they're talking about Georgia right now. Governor Kemp is up, as you can see, and the crowd is really excited about a potential 4 more years for Governor Brian Kemp. Right now, turning to the Senate race, the updated results that we have from the Secretary of State, as of about 9:31 p.m., so Herschel Walker down about 70,000 votes. Now, it's important to note, the Libertarian candidate, Mr. Oliver, has around 51,000 votes. So we could be looking at a potential spoiler candidate here. Now, there have been some talks about that. So I followed up with chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, David Schaefer. He told me that regardless tonight or on December the 6th, Georgia Republicans are ready to win now or in a runoff, and they've got infrastructure ready. So one of the things they're looking at, the Walker campaign has also sent a speaker out to kind of put everybody's mind at ease and let everybody know a lot of the metro votes have been counted, but these ex-urban and suburban counties, which the Walker campaign thinks will break for them, they're going to be coming in a little bit later. So the crowd here, they're a little bit on edge, but they're still excited. They still think that Herschel's going to pull it out tonight. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
Thank you, Spencer.
Fan
fans of Herschel Walker visited the Classic Center before Georgia's big game against Tennessee Saturday morning to see the former Bulldog star back in Athens.
Where I started, I remember coming to my first meeting with Coach Dooley. He said, "You guys, we stay together. We stay together as a team. We'll win a championship." And that's what I want to say right now. We stay together. We stay together. We can get this thing worked out.
Herschel Walker is the greatest politician to ever live. I am pro Herschel. Don't worry about those commercials. They are false. I am real, and I'm telling you right now that he will be the greatest politician that the Republican Party have seen in a long, long time.
Other Republican candidates joined Walker to speak, with Walker saved for last.
I think he has some good ideas. My back pocket's been hurting a lot the last 2 years, so I actually voted for Warnock the first time. I'm really an independent, but I'm always open to whatever candidate has the best ideas.
Y'all saw the debate, didn't you? Don't get excited about it, because did anyone in here think that Senator Warnock can beat Herschel Walker in a debate?
It's kind of swung me more. I felt addressed the issues more that are mattering to me this time in the midterm election.
Walker and his campaign team said a red wave is coming on Tuesday.
Everybody, please, God, change the world and vote for Herschel Walker, because I am.
And judging from how this crowd reacted, others will.
So I want to tell you what my offensive lineman told me. Herschel, follow me. I'll take you to the promised land. So I'm going to tell all you, I'm going to tell all you, vote for me, and we'll help us all get to the promised land. God bless you.
For Grady Newsource, this is Michael Doty.
Now we're going to go to the other side for Democratic incumbent Reverend Raphael Warnock. We have Jake Druckman there. Jake, what has changed since we last talked to you?
Here at Senator Warnock's campaign party, we still have not heard from the senator himself yet, but energy remains high. We have heard from a number of guest speakers, including just a moment ago, actress Lynn Whitfield. Currently, the most recent report we've gotten from the Georgia Secretary of State's office, about 64% of precincts in the state are reporting, and Senator Warnock still maintains a lead over Republican Herschel Walker, leading to the energy remaining high here, although, of course, that lead could change at any moment. Many of the votes that we've seen counted have been early votes. Again, according to the Georgia Secretary of State's office, we saw a record-breaking 2.5 million early ballots cast in the early voting period, which is an unprecedented number for a midterm election.
In January of 2021, Raphael Warnock made history. Voters elected him Georgia's first black U.S. senator and one of the first Democrats elected to the position in 2 decades. Now, less than 2 years later, he faces voters again in an attempt to earn a full 6-year term.
But I was hired to work for the people of Georgia, and I remain sharply focused on them and their needs.
This year, Warnock faces Republican challenger Herschel Walker, a former University of Georgia football star, NFL player, and business owner. Early polls showed Warnock with a small lead over his opponent, but that lead shrunk as Election Day approached. Warnock won his 2021 runoff by just 2 percentage points, and it seems he didn't take his slight polling advantage this year for granted. The senators held campaign rallies across the state over the past several weeks, including appearances in Athens and at the University of Georgia.
While opponents have criticized Warnock for his record of voting along with other Democrats, including President Joe Biden, in an online press conference with Georgia student media outlets, Warnock said he's committed to serving the Georgians who elected him.
I'm listed as the 18th most bipartisan senator in the Senate, which I think is quite a feat, since in terms of seniority, I'm number 100. Out of 100 senators, I'm the most junior senator in the Senate, and yet I've managed to co-sponsor and do so much legislation with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that I'm the 100th senator in the Senate and the 18th most bipartisan senator in the Senate. I worked with the senator from Alabama to help Georgia farmers. I worked with the senator from Indiana to address the issue of dangerous railway crossings. I worked with Ted Cruz of Texas to extend what will be Interstate 14 through our state. And I worked with Marco Rubio, with whom I disagree on the reproductive choice question, to address the issue of maternal mortality. There are too many women in our state dying while trying to have babies.
When it comes to the election itself, the senator has stressed the importance of young people turning out to vote in the midterms.
There's something about the idealism of youth. Old people can get cynical. You know, when I say old people, I'm talking about people like me. And we need your energy. We need your idealism. We need your impatience. You know, people say young folk can be so impatient. Well, I didn't come today to discourage that impatience. I came to stir it up.
Jake Druckman, Grady Newsource.
Thank you, and we'll be here to keep you updated as more results come out.
Thank you for that update, Jake. Now we're going to take a look at the gubernatorial race up here now. With 51% of the precincts reported, we're seeing Brian Kemp, the Republican incumbent, at 52%. Stacey Abrams, the Democratic challenger for the second time since 2018, at 47%. And Shane Hazel, Libertarian, at 1%, taking away from those two bipartisan representatives there. And now we're going to go over to Connor Hendricks. He's live at the Kemp debate over there. Connor, it's a lot more full now. What's changed since we last been to you?
Well, as Governor Kemp has expanded his lead over Stacey Abrams, the mood has become a lot more lively. The room's become a lot louder. Now, the night is still young and there's still a lot more to go. So we're going to continue to keep you updated on air and online as the night continues. For now, live in Atlanta, Connor Hendricks, Grady Newsource.
And we will also keep you updated as those more election results come in, those other 49% of the precincts. But now we're going to go over to Sydney Hood. She's over at the Stacey Abrams campaign. Sydney, what's changed since we last spoke to you?
Well, certainly, Justin, the energy here has not changed. This is a very energetic room tonight, and this room is also filled with some of Stacey Abrams' most loyal supporters. Earlier today, I spoke with a couple who says they've been supporting Abrams since 2017, and we've heard from speakers. Earlier, we heard from Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and Representative Nakima Williams, who represents Georgia in the 5th Congressional District. She herself, she expressed her own sentiments for Stacey Abrams' story about her son, saying Abrams hears and uplifts all of us, including children now.
Well, it looks like that there was a lot of commotion there, especially with the cell towers. We sort of lost Sydney there, but when we come back, we're going to get some results from Barrow and Jackson County.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I think I finally found.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far.
A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please. I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
You're home before sunrise. On top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I think I finally found.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far.
A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource Election 2022. We're going to go to Ashley Balsavius. She has a package on the redistricting of Georgia.
Thanks, Justin. Tonight's midterms marks the first election following the redrawing of Georgia's congressional districts. I have an article pulled up here from the Grady Newsource website, which explains the redistricting. Now, it's important to note that the districts change every 10 years. That's due to the census. Our population in Georgia is over 10.7 million people as of last year, divided among 14 congressional districts. We can take a look here at this map of what it looked like before redistricting. You might not be able to see it here, but before redistricting, the 6 counties we cover were actually in 2 different districts. Jackson, Madison, and a little bit of Clark County were in District 9, and Barrow, Oconee, Oglethorpe, and the other half of Clark County were in District 10. After the redistricting, all of Northeast Georgia, the 6 counties we cover at least, are in the same district, which is District 10. And of course, tonight on the ballot is Republican Mike Collins running against Democrat Tabitha Johnson Green for the House seat. You can also take a look at this map down here, which is interesting. It shows what the results could be tonight if everyone voted the same way they did in the 2020 election. So you can see the 6 counties here. We have Athens, Clark County, which voted blue, of course, in the 2020 presidential election, and then our surrounding counties, which all voted red. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and if the map will look the same tonight. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you for that information. Now we're going to go through some of the areas in Barrow County, Clark County, and another county. We're going to see it so far. Here we go. So we're Jackson County. Yeah, we haven't hit Jackson County yet. But first we're going to start with Clark County. For 100% of the precincts reported, the Barrow County Solicitor General Kyle Shari, the Republican incumbent, unopposed at 100%. So he will be the Solicitor General. 100% of the precincts reporting in Barrow County, Commissioner District 4, Alex Ward, the Republican incumbent, at 73%. Going unopposed at 73% is a little interesting, but if that holds up, he will be the commissioner. 100% of the precincts reporting for the Barrow County Commissioner, District 5, Tim Walker, a Republican who is unopposed at 100%. And for 100% of the precincts reporting for the Barrow County Commissioner of District 6, Deborah Lynn, the Republican, at 100% as well. So many of those have been finalized. We're going to continue going on here in a moment to see some of the other areas in here we go. So with 100% of the precincts reported, Barrow County Board of Education, District 1, is Kristen Bradford, Republican, running unchallenged at 74%. And we're going to continue working here at 100% of the precincts reporting. The Bexar County Board of Election, District 3, Lisa Maloof, the Republican incumbent, so she held the seat before, is looking at 100%. So she will most likely be holding the Board of Education, District 3. I can't stop saying that. The Board of Education, District 3, was going to Lisa Maloof. We're going to keep going on to, there's a lot of graphics. We do have a lot of graphics, so we're going to have to get through all of them. So now we're going to go to Athens-Clarke County and figure out what the results are looking at there in a moment. So with 100% of the precincts reported, the Clarke County Solicitor General that has been on the ballot, Will Fleener, he's running unopposed, the Democrat at 100%. Athens-Clarke County, known as more of a Democratic area, excuse me. And we're going to keep going to another graphic here. Once we see it, we're also going to be getting some live shots from these counties after we get through a couple of these. So we're waiting on those currently. So we do have a couple. One thing with Jackson County, they have 27 fire advisory board positions. All of them are running unopposed, but they're on the ballot. 27 fire advisory posts running from Jefferson to Brazelton and some other areas. And I think we're going to be hearing about some results there. So for the District 3, 100% of the precincts reporting Jackson County Commissioner District 3, Chad Bingham, the Republican, at 100%. And then we're going to keep going through those 3, 4, and 5 are on the ballot. 100% of the precincts reported for Jackson County Commissioner District 4, Marty Seagraves. He's the Republican incumbent. I've met Marty. He is looking at 82% right now. And we're going to keep going. I believe District 5 is up next. Those 3 are all on the ballot with 100% of the precincts reported. Jackson County Commissioner District 5, Marty Clark, the Republican, at 100%. That District 5 is a new district in Jackson County. And 100% of the precincts reported. The Jackson County Board of Education District 2, Ricky Sanders, the Republican, at 100%. Ricky Sanders is known in the other areas. With 100% of the precincts reported, the Jackson County Board of Education District 3, Robert Hollett, a Republican incumbent, at 100%. So there were 3, so 2, 3, and 5 are all on the ballot for Jackson County. 100% of the precincts reported for the Board of Education District 5. Ty Clark, the Republican, will have that position at 100%. And we'll keep going. There's a lot of fire advisory board positions in that area. I'm not sure if we're going to go through all 27, but now we're going to go to, here we go, the Arcade Fire Advisory Boards with 100% of the precincts reported. Post 3, Travis Bennett at 100%. And we'll get through these as we keep going. A lot of graphics to get to. 100% of the precincts reported for the East Jackson Fire Advisory Board. Post 1, Ronnie Ray at 100%. 100% Fire Advisory Board Post 3, Wayman Iverser, 100%. Post 5 for East Jackson, Tommy Fields, 100%. Post 1 for Harrisburg, Larry Barrett at 100%. Post 2 of Harrisburg, we'll go to Levi Patterson at 100%. Post 3 of Harrisburg, Douglas Strickland at 100%. All of these running unopposed. Jackson Trail, Post 4, will go to Richard Terrell with 100%. 100% of the precincts reporting, so all of these are closed right now. And the advisory board Post 5 for Jackson Trail Fire is going to Kevin Vermillion at 100%. We're going to keep going here. For the Nicholson Fire Advisory Board, Brad Ivy at 100%. So if you know these people personally, congratulate them on their advisory board posts. We're going to keep going back to Jackson Trail Fire Advisory Board. Steve Kane at 100%. So we're going to get through the Jackson Trail Advisory Post 7. It's probably the most. David Collick, Maysville Fire Post 1. We're starting there now. Paul Lunsford, Maysville Advisory Post 2. Mark Love is on that board post. Maysville Post 5 is Terry Byers, 100%, excuse me. We're going through these. Nicholson Advisory Board Post 1, Dennis Brock at 100%. Nicholson Fire Advisory Board Post 2, Brad Ivy at 100%. And we're continuing there. North Jackson Fire Post 1, Bobby Llewellyn at 100%. And we're going to continue with these. There's 27 of them here, and there's a lot to go through. Now, these are important positions since there are 27, and Jackson County is significantly growing. Their population has doubled since the year 2000. It was around 40,000 to now about 80,000. So more posts, and more districts. So now we're going to go to Barrow County, or believe we're going to go to a live shot. Yep, a live shot with Mary Lou Masters. We call her Mary Live Masters on our normal Grady Newsource show, but she's live in Barrow County and is going to give us some updates there. Mary Lou, what do you have for us?
Hey, Justin. So we have 100% of the precincts reporting right here in Barrow County. So both the locally contested elections here have been called. So the District 4 County Commission seat has been won by incumbent Republican Alex Ward with 2,850 votes. And his opponent, Judy Bevers, the Democrat, she finished with 1,057 votes. Now for the Board of Education District 1 election, Kirsten Bradford won, the Republican, with 4,009 votes, beating the incumbent independent, Kenny Lumpkin, with 1,420 votes. So those are the updates for the locally contested elections here. Now going up to the gubernatorial race, the final numbers in Barrow County, Brian Kemp at 21,823 votes, Stacey Abrams at 7,301 votes, and Hazel at 288 votes. Now for the Senate vote, we have Walker at 20,127 votes, Warnock at 8,232 votes, and Oliver at 893. Those are the final reports that we have here. And that's all we got for you, Justin. Back to you.
Thank you for that update, Mary Lou. And she also did some reporting on some of the factors there in Barrow County. We're going to take a look at what she found.
The county commission seat for District 4 is up for grabs this midterm season. While Barrow County has been voting Republican for county commissioners since 1988, Monica Franklin, the Director of Elections and Voter Registration, says their population is growing and Democratic voters are moving in.
We are generally 75 to 80% Republican. We are seeing just the moving in, the residents here moving in from Gwinnett, Fulton, DeKalb, from the more Democrat strong counties. So I'm expecting a more tilt in that percentage.
Judy Bevers, the Democratic candidate running for the seat, believes her life experience will allow her to best serve Barrow.
I'm at the retirement age now, and I can put forth a lot more effort to trying to help the community as a whole. I have a lot to offer, I think, of life experiences, just because I've had so much life experiences over my career path, which could be an asset.
Judy Bevers says one of her Democratic values is helping low to middle income people. Alex Ward, the incumbent Republican, says his main Republican value is keeping the taxes low. Ward, who's only been in office since March, believes he's only just begun.
I think that we've only just scratched the surface of what we're capable of doing. And since I've only been there for 6 months, let's keep that going and let's make sure that we're pushing that forward. So that way, as we continue to grow, we're doing it in a smart and responsible way, keeping the taxes low and keeping a small town feel. Keep that mindset that I've already started to bring the last 6 months going for the next 4 years.
Now we're going to go back to Athens Clarke County right here to Micaiah Costin. She's live at the Board of Elections office. There she is. Michaela Young. I'm sorry, Michaela. Well, she's over at the Board of Elections. Michaela, what do you have for us?
Hi, Justin. All precincts are now in, and for the local results, for Solicitor General running unopposed, Will Fleener will be the Solicitor General. For the Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor running unopposed as well, Ray Rozier will take that position. And for the local referendum, most citizens of Athens have voted yes, and as of now, as of today, the vote is in that income housing will be lowered for all taxes on housing. Looking into the U.S. Senate and the state governor races, Democrats have won for the city of Athens. Looking into specifics, Warnock with 71.18% and Walker with 26.9%. For total votes, there were a little over 40,000 votes that were tallied. 28,551 votes were for Warnock, and 10,804 votes were for Walker. Looking into the governor race, Stacey Abrams had 66.73% of the votes, and Brian Kemp had 32.48%. Looking into specifics, 26,889 votes were for Stacey Abrams, and 13,087 votes were for Brian Kemp. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you for keeping us updated, Ms. Young. Now, particularly in the South, police reform has been a hot topic among politicians and voters alike, especially in recent years. Maddie has more.
Yes, Justin. Following the widely publicized police-involved killings of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and even nearby in Atlanta, Rayshard Brooks, according to the Pew Research Center, 87% of African-American adults believe policing, the courts, and the prison system need major changes. Looking to the Senate race, let's see where each candidate stands on policing. According to Senator Warnock's campaign website, he believes, quote, "We need to responsibly fund the police while reimagining the relationship between police departments and the communities they serve." His opponent Herschel Walker's site states in part, quote, "Herschel thinks that defunding the police is a ridiculous idea. Crime is out of control in many of our major cities, including Atlanta. Politicians have demoralized, defunded, and undermined the good men and women in uniform who risk their lives every day so that we can be safe." So here's what a voter who has police reform at the top of their mind had to say about the issue. It'll go to the clip in just a moment. And we don't have the clip with us, so I'm going to send it back to you, Justin.
Well, thank you for the update, Maddie. And now we're going to go back upstairs to Matthew Welsh. He's up at the path right now. Matthew, what's the update up there now?
Thanks, Justin. We might be one analyst down up here, but I assure you we're still kicking it. We're still giving you guys some great analysis. To our remaining panelists now, Shane Hazel and Chase Oliver are two libertarians running in the governor and Senate race. How have libertarian candidates really changed races in this state, and are they able to even make an impact and have their voice heard?
Well, yeah, the impact that they have is that if we have a runoff, it's because of that third candidate. And so we had the Senate runoffs in the past. We've had Public Service Commission runoffs. Looks like there's a good chance we'll have another Senate runoff. So if we only had two candidates, clearly somebody gets 50% plus one that way.
Professor Watson?
Well, and to build on that, I think you have to understand for Republican voters who are dissatisfied with some of the candidates, particularly with the Senate candidate, it's a place for them to park their dislike without having to force them to choose between either the Democratic or Republican candidate. And so again, it is something that gives them that option that, as Dr. Bullock correctly notes, could actually contribute to a runoff scenario.
And we do see that the Libertarian in the Senate contest is doing substantially better than the Libertarian in the gubernatorial contest. So as Professor Washington points out, yeah, some of those voters are voting for that Libertarian for the Senate. It's probably not because they're really Libertarians. It's just they can't bring themselves to vote for either the Democrat or the Republican.
To that kind of vein, we're seeing really Brian Kemp take more of a commanding lead in this election here. Does anything surprise you about that race particularly, given the fact that this is Stacey Abrams' second time trying to win the governorship?
Well, incumbents are awfully hard to beat, and he had a record to run on. It's a record that's popular certainly with Republicans, but also with independents and some Democrats, opening the state up, and then he's able to point to the good economy of the state. We got record low unemployment, and of course, if it happens on your watch, you claim that you were the one who did it. This is just the way politicians are. So yeah, he had something to work with. And the other thing I'd say is that I think Stacey Abrams had several unforced errors. Things that she said that she didn't need to say, and then they lent themselves to ads that were run against her.
Specifically, what do you mean when you mention that?
Well, okay, the one which says Georgia is the worst place to live. All right, there's survey research which showed that 2/3 of Georgians would invite others, their family members, people they know, and say, you ought to move to Georgia. So that just doesn't ring true when she says that. The other thing I think when she was on, I believe, was The View, and she's asked, would you run for president? She says, yeah, I would. Well, okay, lots of politicians would, but most of them, when asked something like that, would say something about, well, yeah, I'd never say no to whatever could come along, but right now I'm just interested in becoming governor of Georgia. So by saying that, yeah, I would, creates that image of maybe she's just using this governorship as a stepping stone.
Well, and I think it goes back to something that I think is one of my key observations in the race, which is that Kemp has run a very disciplined campaign. His messaging has been similar and consistent throughout. He's repeated his core arguments as to why Georgians should vote to reelect him, whereas Stacey Abrams has had trouble finding her footing to settle on a message, and then she's gone off message and with some of these unforced errors, and that's contributed to that. And so for campaigns to be effective, you really want to be disciplined, you really want to be consistent, and you can't change it. I mean, you can't go on a show and go off message. I mean, you should be on that show to deliver your messages in that audience. I recall seeing, Brian Kemp on Fox News, and he just delivered the same speech, the same messages there that he does on the campaign trail. It's always the same, and that repetition is so key to doing it. Again, as I tell my students, campaign messaging is not a jazz concert. It's not a place for improvisation. It's a place for consistency.
Quickly here, just to round out, what issues and what messages do you think have been home runs for the Republican Party so far?
Well, the Republican main issue has been the economy, and particularly inflation, and then what they do is they link that to, it happens on President Biden's watch. They blame him for that, and then they say, and what's more, these Democrats, whether it be Stacey Abrams or Raphael Warnock, well, they're friends of Joe Biden. Therefore, if you don't like inflation, you don't like Joe Biden, you don't therefore like these Democrats. That's the message they've run on. The Democratic message has been, I guess it's been a couple of them at least. One of them has been concerned about abortion, about the abortion decision that came down this summer. And then more recently, it's been one about protecting democracy.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that. Republicans have been, again, very disciplined in focusing on inflation. I mean, it's such a key issue. It's really a no-brainer to focus on that. And they worked on it very effectively. And again, you have, incumbent President Biden, who has very low favorable numbers, and they're capitalizing on that, and they're tying candidates to him and doing a very effective job of doing it. Democrats have vacillated on message throughout the campaign. As Dr. Book said, they started really focusing on Dobbs after the Dobbs decision. They thought that was going to be the ticket. And then as it seemed like that wasn't gaining traction, they shifted to focusing on democracy as their closing argument, with President Biden doing an impromptu event in Union Station in D.C. to kind of highlight that. And for a time, there were Democrats who said, well, you should talk about Democratic accomplishments on, transportation infrastructure and all those things. But they could never quite settle on that. They never really focused on that. They focused on these other two issues.
Some interesting insight, especially there, as Kemp takes a more commanding lead over Abrams. Justin, we'll throw it back to you in the studio.
Thank you for that update, Matthew. One thing to note about Dr. Charles Bullock is that he was named a university professor. And I'll go back to them in a second. We're back to me. And so Dr. Charles Bullock, he was named a university professor. It's an honor bestowed on faculty who have significant impact at the University of Georgia beyond normal academic responsibilities. And what's cool is it was first awarded in 1974, and no more than one university professor can be named in any year. And then Dr. Watson, he's got 20 years of experience in public affairs, campaigns, and communications with Grady College, and he also served as an appointee to the administration of President George W. Bush. Now, they mentioned the Senate race. Let's go take a look at what the current standings are for them. Now, this is with 77% of the precincts reporting. We have Herschel Walker, the Republican, and Reverend Raphael Warnock, the Democratic incumbent, both at 49%. Wow, Chase Oliver has gotten a 2% from those votes as a Libertarian. Now, if this stays neck and neck at 49 and 49%, that would mean, according to the Georgia State Constitution, that there would be a runoff between the top two candidates. Now, that would most likely be held on December 6th. Be a couple weeks after the November 8th election. So we'll get those other percent of precincts coming in. But when we come back, we're going to go revisit Ashley in our digital studio when we come back.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
And welcome back to our Grady election show for 2020. We're going to go to Ashley Balsavia. She's got a digital report for us. Ashley, what do you have for us?
Hey Justin, I'm joined here by Alden Lissa, who's our digital producer. She's been overseeing our team of producers who have been producing content all night on our platforms on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. So Alden, why is it so important that we are getting this coverage out tonight?
Yeah, social media is where a lot of people get their information first. So it's really important that we're updating our Instagram, our Facebook, our TikTok, all of the platforms that we have a lot of followers on. We want to be putting those facts out first, and we want to make it nice and concise so that everybody can see it and understand what's going on in the election.
Awesome. And what are your plans for the rest of the night as you're, finalizing those final social media posts?
Yeah, as more information comes out, we're just going to continue to update until the results are finalized and just see how it works out for all of the races.
All right, thank you. And back to you, Justin.
Thank you for that update. And now we're going to go to we'll go somewhere. But we're going to go to Stacey Abrams. I'm sorry, we're just getting this news. But yeah, Sydney Hood is our Grady Newsource reporter at the Stacey Abrams campaign. We're going to see Sydney in a second here. She's been all the way in Atlanta. There she is. Sydney, what do you have for us?
Justin, one thing's for sure tonight, the energy here has not changed. It is still a high energy environment. Folks here, they are staying optimistic, they're staying excited, and looking at this latest update from the Secretary of State's office, we've got a little over 80% of their precincts reporting. Governor Kemp is still ahead. Abrams is still trailing her, but like I said, people here, they are not letting that put a damper on their party tonight. They are staying optimistic, they are staying hopeful, and they are staying and pushing through the night, hoping to see Stacey Abrams make history. I'll continue to stay up here and update you for sure. Reporting in Atlanta, Sydney Hood, Grady Newsource.
Yeah, I see some people that were dancing over there. We don't have Connor yet. He's over at the Kemp debate, but we're going to go over to the Warnock campaign. That's where Jake Druckman is. Jake, what's changed since we've last saw you?
Warnock's campaign, currently with 81% of the precincts reported, according to the Georgia Secretary of State's office. Republican Herschel Walker has taken the lead in the race. However, energy is still alive at Senator Warnock's campaign party. In the past few minutes, we have heard from Fulton County Sheriff Pat LeBach, as well as Senator John Ossoff, who both delivered rallying cries for Senator Warnock's supporters. One possibility to keep in mind in this race is that we may not have a winner tonight. It is a possibility that if neither candidate receives up to 50% of the votes, this race could go to a runoff. Obviously, Senator Warnock is no stranger to runoffs after his initial run for Senate in 2020 against then Senator Kelly Loeffler went to a runoff.
Thank you for that update, Jake. And now we're going to go over to the Walker campaign. This is neck and neck from what we last saw. Spencer, what can we expect right now from the Walker campaign?
Hey, Justin. Well, Jake was right. Georgia state law requires the 50% plus one threshold. Now, as of about 15, 16 minutes ago, the Georgia Secretary of State had Herschel Walker up about 23,000 votes statewide. Now, it's important to remember that most counties have already started to report, and there are some that are partially reporting. Only 3 counties have not reported yet. Those are more rural counties. So from what we're hearing from the Walker people, they expect that those counties will break their way. I also talked to a former campaign manager and Dr. Oz's former political director who's down here doing some third-party consulting work, and she and others are concerned about a runoff. But the hopes are still high. As you can see, people are excited. So, yeah, I think there's still a lot of energy right here, and they're not going to give up at the Walker campaign, that's for sure.
Thank you for that update, Spencer. And now we're going to do a very big reveal of some of the current standings of these elections. We're going to start with the governor with 77% of the precincts reported. For the governor's state of Georgia, Brian Kemp, the Republican incumbent, at 54%. Stacey Abrams trailing behind as the Democrat challenger at 46%. And Shane Hazel, Libertarian, at 1%. And now we're going to go to the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia, 77% of the precincts reported. Brooke Jones, the Republican, at 52%. Charlie Bailey, the Democrat, at 46%. And Ryan Graham, the Libertarian, at 2%. And to the United States Senate with 82% of the precincts reported, Herschel Walker, Republican, and Reverend Raphael Warnock, the Democratic incumbent, at both neck and neck at 49%. Due to Chase Oliver's as a Libertarian, the 2% there. So looking at a run, 77% of the precincts reported. The Georgia Commissioner of Agriculture, Tyler Harper, the Republican from Ocilla, Georgia, he's looking at 53%. And Nikita Hemingway, who is the first black Democrat to run for the Commissioner of Agriculture, at 45%. And David Rodebra Libertarian at 2%. So we'll keep you updated on those. A 8-point lead for Harper. And for the Commissioner of Insurance, with 77% of the precincts reported, John King, the Republican incumbent, at 54%, and Janice Robinson, the Democrat, at 46%. King was appointed by Governor Kemp in 2019. And now we're going over to the 77% of precincts reporting for the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, the Republican incumbent, at 54%. And B. Wynn, at the Democrat, at 44%. 10-point difference there for Raffensperger, and Wynn, along with Ted Metz, Libertarian, at 3%. And we're going to keep going to the Georgia Attorney General, 77% of the precincts reporting. Chris Carr, the Republican incumbent, at 52%. Jennifer Jordan, the Democrat, at 46%, known as Jen Jordan. And Martin Cowan, the Independent, at 1%. Now to the Georgia State School Superintendent, with 77% of the precincts reported. Richard Woods, the Republican incumbent, and 55% there. And Alicia Searcy, the Democrat, at 45%. Woods has been a commissioner for 7 years. He's a state school superintendent. He's been the state school superintendent for 7 years. Sorry about that. So we're going to keep going through these. We're going to the Division of Labor. We're just waiting on that. I'm sorry, the Commissioner of Labor, with 77% of the precincts reporting. Bruce Thompson, the Republican, at 53%, and William Bodie Jr., the Democrat, at 45%, and Emily Arison, the Libertarian, at 2%. Now, we're going to keep going here with 57% of the precincts reporting. U.S. House of Representatives, District 9, Andrew Clyde, the Republican incumbent, at 74%, knocking Michael Ford, the Democrat, at 26%. Now, that's only 50% of the 57% of the precincts reporting, so we'll see if there's any sort of leeway for Ford, or maybe Clyde will in with it. But with 83% of the precincts reported for the Georgia U.S. House of Representatives District 10, Mike Collins, the Republican, at 62%, and then Tabitha Johnson Green, the Democrat, at 38%. Now we're going to go over to Connor Hendricks. I think we got him back on the screen here. We're actually going to do that after break. We're going to get him live and set up and see what's been going on at the Kemp rally.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
You're home before sunrise, on top of the house, the kids, and our future. The smell of your cooking is our alarm clock. My Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now so we can feel prepared for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give us the personalized tips we need so we can live our lives to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Welcome back to Grady Newsource Election 2022. We're going to go to Connor Hendricks. He's over at the Brian Kemp campaign. We're going to see him in a second. Connor Hendricks has been there since probably around 6 o'clock, so it was empty when we first saw him, but now it must be popping. There he is. Connor, what can you tell us now?
Well, Justin, as Governor Kemp pulls ahead, it's still an excited yet anxious crowd. If you ask the people behind me, they tell you that it's still not over until it's over. First Lady Marty Kemp came out and addressed the crowd a short while ago, and she said that while a gubernatorial race and the second re-election were not in her marriage vows, they look forward to serving the state for another 4 years if they're re-elected. That's all for now in Atlanta. I'm Connor Hendricks reporting.
Thank you for that, Connor. And now we're going to go to Sydney Hood, back to Sydney Hood at the Stacey Abrams campaign. We saw some people dancing before, but now what is it looking like over there, Sydney?
Well, Justin, you've got people still dancing. They're still excited. They're still optimistic. But then you have a couple who are starting to lose hope. They're starting to leave. They're feeling a little bit discouraged right now as Abrams is still trailing behind Governor Kemp in these latest precinct numbers. But like I said, the energy here is still high. They say it's not over until it's over. The night is still going, and they are going to stay here with their high hopes until all of the ballots have been counted and all the numbers have been reported through. Now, I'll keep you updated. We'll keep you updated on our Grady Newsource digital platforms as the night progresses. But for now, reporting in Atlanta, Sydney Hood, Grady Newsource.
Now we're going to go back up to the path to Dr. Charles Bullock and Dr. Joseph Watson and Matthew Welsh, our moderator.
Hayden Anderson Forum for the last time. Professor Watson, Dr. Bullock, has anything really stood out to you? What are your final impressions on the election night so far? What has stood out to you most?
Well, I'll start and just say that I think that the returns that we've seen so far, and there's still more to see, suggest that despite a lot of media coverage to the contrary, Georgia remains fundamentally a red state. It's not a purple state yet. It may become one, but it's not yet. And I think it's a reminder that candidate quality matters. And I think that when you look at the dichotomy between Governor Kemp's performance and Herschel Walker's performance, you see that Kemp's overperforming Walker, and a lot of that comes down to candidate quality. And obviously, I think that if the Senate nominee was of comparable quality, I think the race would not be as neck and neck as it is. And so, those are my takeaways.
Professor or Dr.
Yeah, building on Professor Watson. Professor Watson says, we look at what Brian Kemp's got, and he's got 54% of the vote. And that's pretty much what you're seeing up and down the ticket for Republicans, again, with the exception of Herschel Walker, who's hovering a little bit below 50. But there's not a whole lot of variation among the share of the other Republicans. And, of course, the other side is, Democrats are running around 45, 46, 47% of the vote. So we really are seeing people who are going in and pretty much voting pretty much a party line ticket. Not a whole lot of deviations across those lines. And so, yeah, we are still a ready state, more reddish than blue. And it may even be, if we go back and kind of pour back through the tea leaves from 2 years ago, it may be that the reason we elected 2 Democratic senators then was not so much that they won, but the Republicans lost, and they lost because they didn't turn out to vote, and they didn't turn out to vote because of the suspicions that President Trump was spreading with regard to the reliability of the Georgia election. So that may have cost the Republicans those 2 Senate seats.
Well, Justin, that's the final word here from our analyst. Dr. Bullock, Professor Watson, we'd like to thank you for your time tonight, as well as Dr. Hayes. I'd like to thank her for spending time with us tonight. It was really interesting to hear what you guys had to say and very insightful. Justin, that's it for us up here. We'll send it back down to you in the studio.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you personally from me to our political experts. And now we're going to go over to our live shot for Reverend Raphael Warnock. We have Jake Druckman there. He's been holding it down for us. What do you have for us, Jake?
With 85% of the precincts now reporting, according to Georgia Secretary of State's office, Herschel Walker has taken a lead against Senator Raphael Warnock. However, the race is still within runoff territory. At the campaign party right now, we just heard from campaign manager Quentin Folks, who said the campaign is still feeling good about where they're at. He said there's still lots of votes left to count, and he also said that Senator Warnock will be addressing the crowd soon. Of course, if this race does go to a runoff, that runoff will occur on December 6th. So keep in mind. Thank you and good night from Senator Raphael Warnock's campaign watch party.
Thank you for that, Jake. And now we're going to go over to Spencer Pipkin. He's at the Herschel Walker campaign. Spencer, what's the energy like there? Oh, well, we're actually waiting on that for a second, but still looks like it's a very narrow race. And there he is. So what does it look like now?
Hey, Justin. So as you can tell, it's a very close race still. With 49.5% of the vote, like Jake said, we are still in runoff territory. So this is expected to go on throughout the night. The campaign has said it's expected to go on throughout the night. About 15, 20 minutes ago, Herschel Walker actually addressed the crowd. He told them that he is very comfortable and that he believes that they're in a good chance to win. So he just urges people to be patient and continue on. So we're going to keep on monitoring to hear from the Walker campaign. Thanks so much and have a good night for the Walker campaign.
Justin's last standby.
Sticking with us, Spencer. Now we're going to go over to Ashley Balsavius with her final Digital Center update. Ashley, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Justin. I just wanted to take the time to remind everyone to make sure you're following us at Grady Newsource across our social platforms, and also keep checking the Results Center, as that will continue to be updated as we get those final results in. It's been a great time tonight here from the Digital Center. Have a good night, and back to you, Justin.
Thank you for sticking with us, Ashley. And now we're going to go to Maddie McCaffrey. She's been in studio with me all night. Maddie, what do you have to say?
Yes, Justin, it's been a great night. A lot of breaking news. Results are still piling in, so we're not sure how it's going to end up, but I was glad to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of some of the issues and concerns that voters care about most this election season. For Grady Newsource, I'm Maddie McCaffrey. Thank you.
And those issues have been heavily reported on throughout these campaigns, and we also will probably have those results in the morning on who will be having those people. So we're going to look at those state races on where they are right now. Currently, we're going to start off with a couple of the bigger races, and we're coming up here. Here we go. So with 82% of the precincts reporting for the governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp is the Republican incumbent at 54%, and Stacey Abrams, a Democrat, at 45%. So a 9-point difference between these two right now. So 82%. And with 82 for the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia, Burt Jones, a Republican, at 52%, and Charlie Bailey, the Democrat, at 46%. So about a 6% difference there. With 82% of the precincts reported for the United States Senate, Herschel Walker, the Republican, at 49%, and Democratic incumbent Reverend Raphael Warnock neck and neck at 49%, but Herschel Walker with a couple more thousand votes, with 82% of the precincts reported for the Georgia Commissioner of Agriculture. Tyler Harper's the Republican at 54%, and Nikita Hemingway, the Democrat, at 45%. Then for the Georgia Commissioner of Insurance, we have John King, the Republican incumbent, at 55%, and Janice Hugh. Then for Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger at 54%, B. Wynn at 43% there. So about 11-point difference. Attorney General Chris Carr for 53% and Jennifer Jordan at 46% there. And that was this was a record-shattering early voting numbers in a tight Senate race that could have been headed for a runoff. It's a crazy election night. Remember, while many local races have 100% of precincts reported, these are not official results and races have not been called. Head online and keep track of the Secretary of State's office live race results for updates. Thank you for sticking with us through a historic midterm of 2022. That's all for us of Grady Newsource. I've been your host, Justin Nemitz.